vices and vices, I end up in crisis. All this time, I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving, 'cause you got tired of my scheming. For the last time, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me. At tea time,
what are these sounds emanating from our speakers this morning? Well, they, of course, would be the sounds of Taylor Swift, who on this day 3 years ago kicked off the Eras Tour. Is it the biggest musical tour in the history of musical tours? Probably. The tour was met with unprecedented demand. It broke ticket sales and venue records worldwide. Around 3.5 million people registered for the pre-sale for the tour, but then the site crashed. And 2.5 million tickets that were sold in a single day marked the highest one-day ticket sales for any artist. So, yes, I do believe that we could safely call the Eras Tour the biggest ever in music history. And that was a little bit of the Taylor Swift song, of course, Anti-Hero from her Midnight's era. I'm not a Swiftie. I'm sorry. Jen, who's on the other side of the glass, making faces at me now. She's very disappointed that I'm not a Swiftie. Look, if you know me even for 1 minute, me and Swiftie probably don't go hand in hand, even though that lovely teenage daughter that used to live in our house before she decided she wanted to be a post-secondary student. Parents, don't let your kids grow up, okay? They will break your heart into a million little pieces. Anyway, the kid, big fan of Taylor Swift. The music, not exactly my cup of tea, but you cannot argue. Tay-Tays, T-Swizzles. Are those names I can still call her? Do I sound like a Swiftie if I call her T-Swizzle or Tay-Tay? You cannot argue the woman's success. This day, March the 17th, back in 2023, the Eras Tour kicks off. Happy St. Paddy's Day. I forgot to wear green. Forgot. If it's one color I don't have a lot of in my wardrobe, it's green. I do have a St. Paddy's Day tie with some green shamrocks on it that perhaps I should have considered, because far be it from me to not celebrate my non-existent Irish heritage. It's a fun day. Chicago dyes its waterways green, and they have a big parade and stuff. I have a funny feeling. I mean, maybe it's just me, but my funny feeling suggests to me that there's not going to be a whole lot of activity on the streets of Waterloo today, at least not the unsanctioned kind of activity with students out celebrating St. Patrick's Day with their annual street party. I have a feeling the students are a little too smart for that, because it is colder than charity outside this morning. I could not believe my drive to work today. It was like a full-on winter's day with the muck flying up from other vehicles, the snow whipping around, some snow-covered lanes on the expressway, and as cold can be. When I walked from my vehicle to the door to the radio station, I could not believe how cold it was. It is March the 17th. Spring starts on Friday. I don't think Mother Nature got the memo. By the way, speaking of those memos, still waiting for the updated snowfall totals for this year. Another dusting overnight. Would we call that a centimeter? I'm not sure. But nonetheless, we had 251.4 centimeters of snow in the winter of 07-08. That was a record snowfall for this region, 251.4 centimeters. I don't think we are going to surpass that record total with this year's snow, even though we've had plenty of it. But it started snowing less into February and certainly in this month of March, despite last weekend and whatever we got overnight. But when it starts in November, and remember, our first snow this year came November the 9th, and it continues to, March the 17th, still very much like winter out there. We are ready for some spring, but I don't think we will have a snowfall record set. But as soon as I get those final numbers, I will let you know. I do know that the record is 251.4 centimeters back in 07-08. Don't know about you, but when I heard the story about the fire at the Walmart, I was taken back about, 6 years' time. Oh my gosh, 6 years' time. Almost exactly, right? I remember the game that we didn't play. See, there's probably a reason I don't mark these milestones, because who wants to mark such a grim milestone? But I remember an OHL game that we did not play, or the last one we did play, pardon me. It was a Wednesday night, March the 11th, 2020, in Guelph. Rangers took on the Storm. I think they won that game. And that was it. Then the league shut down. We were supposed to play on that Friday night, the 13th, and there was no OHL. And I remember going out to our favorite local craft brewery on Sunday, March the 15th, 2020, and talking about all of this news about this COVID-19 thing. And anyway, that's when things shut down, right around this time, exactly 6 years ago. Anyway, it took me back, the story about the fire at the Walmart, Bridgeport and Weber in Waterloo. Do you remember? I mean, I don't want to make light of it, but you remember those days where toilet paper was being set ablaze? Anyway, that's what it took me back to. That's all I can say. A big day today in the city of Kitchener, of course, and region-wide, because we know that the fandom of our Kitchener Rangers knows no borders. And I have a feeling a Tuesday night game on a very blustery and wintry day is going to be jam-packed. We're going to pack them to the gills at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium tonight, because it's a chance for the Kitchener Rangers to wrap up first place in the Western Conference and have home ice advantage for as long as they are around in the playoffs. Kitchener has won 13 in a row at home, for those of you keeping track of such things. And they face the Flint Firebirds, a team that they might have to go through on their way to a possible Western Conference championship in the playoffs and a chance to move on to the OHL championship. I'm getting way ahead of myself, though. It's a big day with a big game coming up tonight. Rangers, Firebirds. If you can't be in the arena, don't you worry about it. We have got you covered right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. Josh Piercy and I will be on the air, starting with your Harris Law pregame show at 6:30. Gives you 30 minutes of pregame information and entertainment, and then the game itself. And then immediately following the game, we open the phone lines so we get to hear from you during Rangers Talk. We can talk about the game that has just finished, the league in general, our hopes and dreams for the Rangers in the playoffs, whatever it happens to be. But starting at 6:30 this evening, we will have you covered when it comes to your Kitchener Rangers, as they have a chance to wrap up first place in the Western Conference. All they need is a point tonight to pull off that trick.
1, 2.
It is your Farwell Show 5. We'll go beyond 2 to 5 every morning on the show as we get things underway. And today, looking back to yesterday, today is a special edition of the Farwell Show 5. It seems to me I should have tried to promote this a little bit more. The special edition of the Farwell Show 5 today, because if you were listening yesterday, thank you as always for being a part of the show. And thank you even more so if you stuck with the show yesterday, because I was about as grumpy could be. And I just was. And there's very little excuse for that. I mean, we're all allowed to have bad days, right? But I shouldn't have days that bad. I got to park that stuff at the studio door and come in here and be less grumpy. So because I was so damn grumpy yesterday and just complaining about absolutely everything, and it was kind of over the top complaining. Like, it wasn't done for exaggeration. It was just me being a really, really grumpy cat. So to begin making amends for all of the grumpiness from yesterday, today's Farwell Show 5 is going to look at the 5 things that our community is getting right. I was all, leadership, we're brutal. Everything was awful yesterday. It's really not. So your Farwell Show 5 today takes a look around the region and tells you what is going right, at least through my eyes, starting at number one, of course. And we'll begin with our regional government. And I would tell you that our regional government is getting it right on policing. They've moved away from this defund and reallocate narrative that was going on some time ago, and they are properly funding a service that is called on more often than any other. I think this is smart regional spending on a critical regional service. Number two on your Farwell Show 5 this morning about things that are going right around here. City of Kitchener, from where I'm sitting, leading the way on financial stewardship in this region, delivering more than a decade's worth of tax increases at or below the rate of inflation. City is also excellent at communication, both with the public and with the media. And staff at the City of Kitchener deserve a ton of credit for activating and energizing the downtown to keep Kitchener an interesting place to live. Number three, Waterloo. Well, you are crushing it with the Build Now project out by Rim Park. That project, about 1,000 affordable, attainable homes through our Build Now initiative, would simply not be possible without the City of Waterloo stepping up not only with the land, but working to make those approvals happen to get that project underway. City of Waterloo deserves a lot of credit for that. Number four, Cambridge, I think, did a good job with its budget as well. It was a bit of a bumpy ride getting there, as you may recall, with councillors not really... Well, the process seemed to change. It was a little bit different when, you had to get these motions approved by staff ahead of time. There was no questions being answered at budget meetings and stuff. It was a bit of a bumpy ride. But I think ultimately what I heard anyway was that Cambridge got there, and council did a pretty good job of keeping taxpayers top of mind and trying to keep costs in check. I think the city should also be commended for its willingness to review its snow clearing procedures. I know, again, it wasn't a perfect system this year, and not everybody loved the AI-generated cartoon characters, but it seems as though there is a willingness to take a review of what went right this year, what didn't, and make improvements for next year. So Cambridge, I think, is getting that right. And number five on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, as we look at our townships in North Dumfries. I think a great job is being done at getting that North Dumfries Community Complex twinned, and there was some good reuse or continued use of the old Air Arena, so nice job there. Also, the bus service that's going to be going from Air to Kitchener starting in the fall. Nice work on that front. Wilmot, I think a good job has been done navigating complex issues during this term of council, like the Prime Minister's path, for example, taking a very thoughtful approach to that. It seemed to me that in the previous 4 years, or the previous term, because we're almost at the end of this one, but there had been a lot more unrest in Wilmot Township, and I think this council has steered things back and managed to get through these complex issues, not to mention a kind of grown-up understanding of the financial realities in Wilmot Township right now. So good job. Looking at Woolwich, well, listen, Arthur Street absolutely nailed it with Arthur Street. Not only getting those proposed bike lanes moved onto parallel streets. This is not an anti-bike lane rant by any stretch. It's just something that makes sense, common sense in Woolwich Township, saying, listen, you don't need to take valuable space away from parking and the important through road that Arthur Street is coming through the township of Woolwich and the town of Elmira, when the bike lanes can easily be put on parallel streets that are far less traveled. I think great job by Woolwich on that. And the repaving. Listen, we want streetscaping, we want the beautification, but that road right now is like a corduroy road, and I think they're getting it right there. And finally, in Wellesley, as we finish our look through the townships on our Farwell Show 5, I think Wellesley is doing an excellent job, and Mayor Joe Nowak should be credited with a nice, careful, and thoughtful approach to growth. Yes, there are developments happening, including a good one on, I believe it's right on Queensbush, right? But the plans for development are solid, and Wellesley is taking a very cautious and calculated approach to growth, including ensuring that water and wastewater services are well planned. So there's a look around our entire region from at least where I'm sitting this morning to say this is what we are getting right. And I thought I would devote the Farwell Show 5 to that this morning. Oh, and a bonus for you on the Farwell Show 5 this morning. Our school boards, no, they're not getting anything right. Just get rid of them, okay?
A Monday warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
I had to throw that last part in there about the school boards. I don't know what Education Minister Paul Calandra is going to do as this term comes to an end. But if he decides that school boards and the boards of trustees should no longer exist, I won't be one of the people shedding tears over that. So I'll just, I can't be entirely unlike myself for today. But we wanted to take the Farwell Show 5 to look at the things that we're getting right around this region, because there are plenty of them. And so we'll celebrate them a little bit as we celebrate St. Paddy's Day. As you know, every day when our show begins at 9, our phone lines are open to you. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Go to the phones right now. Jason is with us. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Mike. The guy from Hamilton, that doesn't represent all of Hamilton, just so people know.
Come on. I love the 2 liters of pop guy. Can I have 2 liters of pop? He's my favorite.
Anyways, talking about, common sense, I don't know, I'm assuming you heard that the province is going to be bringing down some legislature that allows people to openly consume alcohol at parks and festivals without having to go into a beer tent this summer or at some point in time in the next few months. And if you remember, this was a motion I brought to council a couple of years ago to at least trial, open alcohol in a city park like Toronto has done and some other provinces or some other cities across the country. And so, hopefully we don't go overboard with this, and we take it responsibly, and that way, the government's not pulling back. But I think it's about time that, we are allowed to be adults in our parks and have a beer or two.
Are you suggesting, Jason, because I remember that our small c conservative ways prevented us from allowing alcohol in a park like Victoria Park, for example, might we be bringing that motion back to council at some point?
Oh, I don't think I'm going to need to with this legislation change from the government. That they're going to require, as I read it this morning, they're going to require cities to make a bylaw change, but I guess something will have to come to council. But it's just, I think it's past time that we've allowed Ontarians to be adults in some of our situations.
I couldn't agree more on that front, as I think you and I have talked about before. But appreciate the call this morning, Jay. Thank you.
Have a great day, Mike.
You too. Bye-bye. Jason Deneau is a Ward 3 councillor in the city of Kitchener. We were close to going like Toronto went when it comes to alcohol in our municipal parks. And really, if you look at what's gone on in Toronto since, it's not as though the sky has fallen. I'm a big fan of allowing people to act like adults. If we treat them like adults, I think we'll be pleasantly surprised as to how they all turn out, and everything will be okay and the sky will not fall. Speaking of adults, this is a grown-up job that not everybody likes, and I can understand why. But what I didn't know until very recently, and I saw a buddy post it on social media, so maybe you can help me with this. He was outside in his backyard a couple of weeks back now, just as it was starting to get warm, because he has a dog, and he wanted to get the dog droppings before they thawed out. And so he was out there, and he showed himself on his Instagram, like picking up the frozen poopsicles, as we sometimes call them. And he went through all this effort and all these poop bags. And I'm like, and then based on the comments, I'm like, this is what you all do? Because we have a dog too. And I can tell you what I do in the spring, and that is when everything has melted, I just rake everything up. I just rake it up with the spring raking and put it into a yard waste bag, and Bob's your uncle, isn't it? So, like, do you actually, am I doing something wrong here? Is this what you, like, is today the perfect day to get now back out into the backyard because it's freezing, blinking cold outside, and pick up the frozen turds? Because I've always just waited for the thaw, and then I just rake everything up. And I wear gloves, obviously, but I got no problem picking that stuff up that way. It's never been an issue. I couldn't believe the number of people that seem to think the only way to go about it was to pick them up while frozen. So help me out here. What's the best method that you have learned? Because the raking has worked just fine for me, and the weather's nicer too. I'm not going out to pick up frozen turds. Who wants to pick up a frozen turd? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You know, Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been really busy this last little while. As Jason called earlier, a municipal councillor here in our region, talking about legislative changes that may make it possible, and with the majority that Doug Ford has at Queen's Park, likely making it possible for us to behave as adults at festivals this summer when it comes to our adult beverages, alcohol not having to be contained to those corrals that they've often been contained in. I think this is a reasonable way to go when it comes to alcohol policy here in Ontario. As we talked about on the show yesterday, he is also the Premier of Ontario, asking the federal government to consider a legislative change that would make pepper spray legal to carry, because, you know, that's what we want, right? Everybody on the street having the ability to put a little can of pepper spray in their back pocket and just, you know, walk around and use it willy-nilly or something like that. I don't think he's going to get much time from the feds on that, but the Premier is asking that we legalize pepper spray. And then, of course, there are the changes that this Ontario government is making to freedom of information requests, and the Premier is suggesting that these freedom of information requests need to be more difficult to obtain because foreign governments are trying to spy on the provincial government's secrets. Forget about the citizens who say, hey, I think we should know this. It seems to be a move towards decreasing transparency as opposed to increasing transparency. It's been a busy week for the Premier. We're not, are they back yet? Is it this week they just got back? Anyway, it's busy times here in Ontario and busy times in the region. Much for us to discuss on the show today, including the Waterloo Regional Police Service's approach to keeping St. Paddy's Day safe in Waterloo this weekend. Yes, there was a tactical officer with a high-powered rifle on a balcony. We'll learn more about it as we're joined by Police Chief Mark Crowell next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, it certainly did cause a stir over the weekend, didn't it? Photos and video of a police tactical officer on a balcony with a high-powered rifle overlooking the streets of Waterloo, where an impromptu St. Paddy's Day gathering was happening once again. To learn more about it and figure out what this operational plan was all about, we're joined by Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell on the show this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Mike.
What role does a tactical officer like that play at an large outdoor event like we saw on the weekend?
Well, thanks for having me this morning. And just to start, and I will get to your question, the one thing we can agree upon is we both have concerns about the significant impact, the cost, the expense, the strain on our community that an unsanctioned gathering like this plays. So we take a lot of careful planning and risk assessment and creating a detailed operational plan for such events. We have this event. We have others to consider throughout the calendar year. And the tactical officer's role in this capacity is to provide an overwatch, to relay information to all of our operational units that are deployed, and to coordinate the highest level of risk and potential engagement that is required. So certainly happy to explain some of the details that go into the planning and also the role of our emergency response team and tactical capabilities.
Is there not another way, Mark, that could be accomplished? Drones, binoculars, just as an example, as opposed to the rifle?
Well, certainly, I think there's a lot of attention that's been placed upon the presence of a firearm at that height and the appearance of such. But really, this is a commonplace tactic, that is deployed across Canada, across Ontario, and throughout the world for large gatherings. And very unfortunately, we've learned through the tragedies, around the world. You can think of many examples that have occurred of mass casualty incidents where vehicles into crowds, shootings that have occurred from high places, and then other explosive devices into large crowds. These are the considerations that our operational teams learn from other tragedies, and we incorporate that planning into our deployments. So to your question, we do certainly have those other considerations. You mentioned binoculars, drone capability. But when the worst happens in these types of scenarios, it is our diligence and our planning and training that comes into the fold. And so we make these decisions very carefully. And I think it's the public interest for us to explain as much as we can about why such requirements occur. But there's not a month that goes by that we can't learn from other casualties and tragedies around the world. And we need to incorporate that planning into our local deployments.
I have no doubt that there is not going to be a situation where a student who's unruly is going to be targeted by that rifle. What specific criteria would exist for that officer to discharge the firearm?
So when we look at other, mass casualty events, that I've sort of highlighted, that tactical positioning is meant primarily for information gathering and information transfer. And should the worst occur, where there is some kind of a casualty incident or a threat to a crowd that is gathered, they're well positioned to make tactical decisions and deployments. So that's the presence of an overwatch that is commonplace, as I mentioned, from around the world. But really, we want people to understand that this is a protective capacity. It's meant to be there for risk mitigation, and it is certainly not intended to provide any intimidation or to engage the people that are gathered. And could be a ceremonial event, an unsanctioned or a planned gathering. It could be a parade, or it could be just a high-profile event where there's these considerations. I think it's really important to relay that this is something that occurs quite frequently. It has occurred in our region before. It will occur in the future. And this is a commonplace approach to ensure that everyone is safe and that we have every tactical opportunity at our availability.
I'm glad you mentioned that part about having occurred before and is likely to occur again, because this is something that I went through as I was processing this, and perhaps this is just the overwatch is not something we noticed before, just as one example. Specific to this weekend, was there any specific or credible threat, Mark, that made this necessary, or is this just general operating procedure these days?
I would put it in the category of general operating procedure. And we take every single deployment, through the rigors of a risk assessment and risk mitigation. And when we look at the evolution of some of the dangers we've seen around the world, we can look at vehicles, as I mentioned, that have become weaponized into crowds across North America, the presence of firearms or other weapons into, crowded gatherings, explosive devices, and now we're looking at drone technology being weaponized into crowds as well. So these are the considerations, that we now need to attend to. I think that what the public does not quite appreciate is the level of training, preparedness, and the legislated standards, that we adhere to supply this capability to a community of our size. Think about the international airport that we have. Think about even the waterways that we have. We have to be equipped either through our operations or through partnership to prepare to all kinds of responsibilities. So that's the training that our tactical officers are part of on a regular basis. We have hostage and rescue capability, that major incident command capability that is mandated, crisis negotiation, explosive disposal capability, and these are all incorporated into our planning. And so it's something that the public doesn't often see us, carry out, but it's a lot happening behind the scenes. And our hope is that we can all live peacefully and carry through such gatherings, but these are now major modern considerations.
You mentioned at the outset, Mark, that what we're dealing with when it comes to this large unsanctioned street party is something that requires significant resources for us to ensure safety and to address as a community. We know that regional police are a part of this overall operational plan, and there are other stakeholders involved as well, obviously emergency medical care, municipal staff, et cetera. And we did have a municipal mayor express shock that this was part of the police operational plan. When these plans are being put together and all of the stakeholders, if you will, are at a table, what do those conversations sound like? Is it just like, okay, we're responsible for this and the detail isn't, necessary to be shared with municipal side? Paramedics have their role, city has their role, police have their role, and you're all just entrusted to carry that out? What level of detail is shared amongst those stakeholders?
Yeah, I think it's situation specific. I think it's a really great question. So our operational teams are really planning for months for any large gathering, and this, we're certainly very well entrenched in our partnerships with, you mentioned emergency services, the City of Waterloo, the academic institutions, and so on. And so there's certainly a level of planning and information sharing that occurs with the tactical operations, to share. We have a joint, basically communication center that we construct so that we have on the ground information sharing in real time. And so I would say for those trusted partners that are part of the operational team, they're well aware. I think where this has become topical and of interest is that there's a level of political support from the municipal partnership perspective that doesn't get that level of detail. And commonly, we don't share our operational plans, even with our own governance body, in specific detail. And that's the role that we play, sort of, as you ask. To carry out the operations through our training, through the legislative standards and commitments that we uphold. And then it's fluid. We have to respond to intelligence, to assessments of how dynamic the incidents are in the day. And there's a lot of decisions that are made in real time. So one thing maybe just to specify, Mike, is we have a lot of things happening in an operation like this. We have a public order capacity happening. And so that's the on-the-ground, basically, movement of people in a mass gathering. And then we have these larger, I would say, multi-neighborhood tactical considerations where we're looking at people and vehicles and all kinds of circumstances coming and going in a fluid environment. So our officers there are well equipped for a whole staging of sort of low-level engagement to the highest level of engagement, and we respond accordingly minute by minute.
Mark, I appreciate you making time for the show this morning and to provide this explanation for the public. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for your support. All the best.
Mark Crowell is the chief of the Waterloo Regional Police Service. You know what occurs to me at just the end of that, listening to what can be shared, because we're never going to get into specifics of operational plans and tactical approaches, because that would defeat the purpose, wouldn't it? The idea is to try and stay ahead of those who might be trying to do illegal or underhanded things. But what occurs to me as I listen to that description of what goes into an operation like this, and I won't be reluctant to go down this path. holy moly, do we invest a lot of energy and time and resources into ensuring that this illegal party is a safe party for its participants. Just let that sink in. The effort and the resource. I know we talk about it, and eventually there will be a list of charges and a rough estimate of how much money was put into this. But just think of what we are calling upon by way of expert, skilled, highly trained resources to make sure that a bunch of drunk students don't hurt themselves, and heaven forbid something even worse happen. That is something else. Anyway, I could go down the path of the entitlement here, because I guarantee ding dang tea, there is no cares given for what is being asked of emergency services, be they police for safety, paramedics for medical, you name it. No cares given, right? We're going to have our party, and that's it. You deal with the implications of that. Anyway, I hope this sheds some light on what became a viral sensation over the weekend. I can tell you that in the Farwell household, we had a robust discussion about this on Sunday night. Obviously, I had to work. I was in Guelph for a Rangers game and was picking up bits and pieces and trying to process it as I was driving home, just thinking about these photos and videos that had been shared. And then we talked about it when I got home, and my beloved was squarely in this place right now that I am today, which is I'm glad these precautions are being taken, because you just don't know what's going on out there these days. I was a little bit more hesitant. I was like, really though? Like, we can't accomplish this with binoculars or drone or whatever else may be. But as I went through the day yesterday and we talked about this and I considered it more, I'm right here. Right or wrong, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but as much as I don't like to admit that this is the world we are living in, boy, am I glad that we have these skilled people, highly trained people in our communities to overwatch and do their best to ensure that if anything gets out of hand, it's not as out of hand as, and I won't even document the incidents. I know that we're all very well aware of mass casualty tragedies in the past carried out by people with sinister intentions. So I'm here for it. I'm not going to be in the line of fire of a stray bullet, not from a tactical officer anyway. I'm okay with it. I insofar as the overwatch that's being provided. I'm less okay with the idea that we actually need this, but I get it. We talk about the issues every day on this show. Again, hope this clears some things up for you. Your thoughts and reactions to it, always welcome on the show. Our phone lines are open to you at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
That tactical positioning is meant primarily for information gathering and information transfer. And should the worst occur, where there is some kind of casualty incident or a threat to crowd that is gathered, then they're well positioned to make tactical decisions and deployment. So that's the presence of an overwatch that is commonplace. But really, we want people to understand that this is a protective capacity.
A protective capacity that has been employed before and will be employed again right here in our very own community. And this thought did strike me as well as we began this conversation. It started all over social media on the weekend. We talked about it a bit on the show yesterday. And I had little doubt that after we saw what we saw on the weekend in Waterloo, that this is a presence that has been there in the past, perhaps more recent past, but still a presence that has been there that we just did not notice because unfortunately, we are living in a world that has become increasingly dangerous. And that's the saddest part of all of this to me. That, of course, was the voice of Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, who joined us on the show this morning to talk about that tactical officer on a balcony in Waterloo providing overwatch to this weekend's St. Paddy's Day festivities. Very tame compared to years past. Mostly, I think, due to the weather. It was not a pleasant day Saturday to be outdoors after all the snow we got overnight Friday into Saturday. I am fairly confident when I say that's part of the reason it is as quiet again today. We had a reporter out in Waterloo this morning who saw very little. He just tried to stay warm while he was out there. Good job by you, Josh Piercy, because it's not a pleasant day to be outdoors. I'm not sure there was ever much intended for today, and we'll see what happens as the day goes on, I suppose. I best not speak too soon, but we got a pretty good idea in our conversation with Chief Crowell this morning about the amount of work that goes into the planning of our community's preparedness for the party. I don't know how much preparing goes into the party on the part of the participants, if you will. I think they just decide, hey, it's going to be on this Saturday before St. Paddy's Day, or it's going to be on St. Paddy's Day, and we're just going to make sure we have a good supply of alcohol and head out into the streets. But on the community safety side of things, and that includes the safety of the party attendees, there is an awful lot that goes into this. And I was thinking I've had the opportunity in the past to be a part of that training that tactical officers here in the region do. And it was incredible to me as a complete noob to it all, what goes into the training and how your adrenaline starts running and all of the chaos that's going on in these areas as these officers are doing their training to make sure that they do the right thing in every situation. It just goes back to how well-trained and highly skilled these particular officers are. And we can say what we want. During our Farwell Show 5 this morning, I suggested to you that one of the things our region has been getting right of late is its funding of our police service, which is a service that is called upon more often than any other in this community for reasons that go beyond necessary emergencies, right? We know that it's just one of those numbers you can call that somebody is always going to answer. But then just think of things like this, events like this, unsanctioned or otherwise, that are happening in the community that need oversight based on what we have learned from other communities around the world. It is critical work that's being done. And even if you want to be a drunken buffoon in the streets, I guess that's the social contract we sign here in Canada and here in the region of Waterloo. Go ahead and be a drunken buffoon in the streets. We're going to make sure you don't hurt yourself too bad. Or if you do, there are paramedics standing by to take care of that which ails you from whatever fall or other injury you may have suffered. We're going to get you to the 570 News Center for your 10 a.m. update. That's just a few minutes away. And then let's talk about the Galt area of Cambridge and the Heritage Conservation District that the city is working on. It's still a work in progress, but is this holding back the downtown of Cambridge, this Heritage Conservation District, or could it be something else? We'll talk about that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Let's talk downtown, specifically the Galt area of Cambridge, where there is an ongoing conversation about a heritage conservation district. At the last time it was discussed at Cambridge Council, the final decision on expanding this heritage conservation district has been deferred. But what would a heritage conservation district accomplish? And perhaps to the point of a question being asked in a recent op-ed by our next guest, is one even necessary? That guest is Terry Poliak, who's the president of Milestone Integrated Marketing and a property owner in Galt. Good to see you, Terry. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
How are things in our core of Galt?
Well, you just mentioned the HCD, the Heritage Conservation District, and I think as good as they are right at the moment, I think that subject is turning some heads as to what Galt is going to become in the future, including myself. So I could relate to you, I suppose, why I'm here, really. 9 years ago, I was looking for a place to relocate my agency from the Preston area of 21 years. And I looked into downtown Galt and happened to sit with the mayor at the time, Doug Craig. This is in 2017. And by what he said at the time was, Terry, there is a lot going on down here. And he recounted the digital library reconstruction, renovation, the footbridge over to where now the gas light sits, and of course he highlighted the gas light that had been approved just 4 months before, but it hadn't yet had a shovel in the ground. So that was enough to say to me, I want to be investing in a town that was investing and developing and growing. Well, that was 9 years ago, and the gaslight is complete, so is the footbridge, and so is the digital library. But for all intents and purposes, that's it. There has not been any meaningful development since that period of time. But in that period of time, hanging on to the promise of new developments, some new towers similar to Gaslight, circling the downtown core, I was maybe silly enough to invest, which is about $14 million since that time nine years ago, and I am now sitting on those investments and staring at an HCD, in the eye. I'm questioning its validity based on the investments that we've made, mixed with the potential of no developments happening due to the HCD, meaning less people downtown. So I think when you ask what's happening downtown or how things are downtown, they're good, but they need to be much better. And that's going to come with developments and more bodies walking the streets, shopping the shops, and even working down there, like my company, actually.
How Terry, does the Heritage Conservation District, the HCD, impact potential developments, the likes of which you've been hoping for?
Well, take me for an example. Will I invest further into the downtown core knowing that that is a possibility? The answer is no, I won't be. And I know other peers of mine, and actually a partner of mine on another project, has also said he's not going to do any more either. And that's not necessarily just because of an HCD, but there are other things involved too, red tape and, the typical things. But I think, in my opinion and many others that I talk to, it will stifle development because it'll add that layer of, I guess, somewhat fear. What's it going to do to the investments? Is it going, costs will be higher to develop the buildings for sure. But I do walk a bit of a line here, and I have to point this out because I don't want people to think that I'm a developer that's your typical developer, because that's a bad word to some people, of course. I pride myself with what I've done downtown. 6 buildings, all heritage related, and 2 in Preston. In addition to that, by the way, I self-designated both of those properties for good reason. So I understand the idea behind an HCD. I get that. I get all of it. But from a monetary and a developer perspective, it's makes me queasy.
Queasy because you won't be able to realize the investment you had hoped for?
I think it's a two-pronged thing. I would say yes. What will happen to the value of the buildings, attracting tenants, but again, it boils down to we need people. So that's all I think we're really looking for, is to add what I'm looking at behind you with all of those wonderful buildings of the city of Kitchener, sparsely, scattered around town. We need those buildings, and such as what the Gaslight was able to do, and thank God Scott Higgins was able to pull that off because it made a big difference downtown. So we need a few more big differences downtown. Not to be a Toronto, not to be a Kitchener by any means, because we only have a certain amount of, real estate that surrounds the downtown core. But it's people that needs to be there.
And to that end, so I've often talked about that core of Galt being one of my absolute favorite areas anywhere in this region because it's striking, it's gorgeous. Right around Queen's Square, the church spires, the bridges, you name it. Can we maintain, do you believe, Terry, that charm and that beauty as we grow and bring that critical mass of people into the core?
I do. I've often said the downtown core area is tight as it is. I look at that as basically the jewel or the diamond, and surrounding that diamond is the ring. And I think the downtown core needs to be protected, but as you radiate out, you need to have some height. And I'm not talking like others are saying, 3 stories of condos that that sort of are set back. The higher they go, the further they're set back, which also, diminishes the height anyway. It's not enough. It's not going to satisfy the province, for that matter, with the fact that they've identified that downtown core as a growth area. And we're not making our numbers with people and per hectare down there and jobs based on the way it is currently. So I think that's a big thing to look at. I mean, you can't ignore it. So I do think it can be preserved. And in fact, there are certain buildings within that core that desperately need some tender love and care. And that's what I did when I came to the core. I identified 3 main buildings that were derelict at best, unoccupied, raining from the rooftop to the basement. And I was silly enough and passionate enough about it to put money, probably too much money, into them to make them what they are. But I'm, proud of what I've done. But I don't think there are enough of me around. I really don't. And then if there is an HCD, that's probably going to stop others that might be like me or others like me to do what I've done, working on that downtown core. So
it gets too expensive. It's cost prohibitive.
What, an HCD would make it cost prohibitive?
Right. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, that remains to be seen. But I mean, I don't want to call them restrictions, but guidelines and certain things like that. I mean, materials and red tape and time. I know there's a discussion about insurance costs, if you can get it, and so on. I don't really have a lot of information on that myself, but people are talking about it. So I think it would be cost prohibitive. Yeah.
What would an ideal Galt core look like to you?
Well, the core as it sits currently today has the bones. It definitely does. Again, it needs housing, and not 3 and 4 bedroom units, because from a developer's point of view, that could not really happen close to downtown. That's more like a home. But it needs more entertainment. It needs dining. It needs places for people to go. And it's started, but it's capped itself off over the last few years. It has not grown to any great degree. When I first got there in 2017, there were almost tumbleweeds rolling down the main street on Lower Main. Broken windows and boarded up windows, were not uncommon. That's all changed. So with what we've been able to do in the addition of the gas light and a few other little places, the storefronts have skinned up a little better and they look a little bit more palatable. And people felt that. But also people are saying to me now there was a bit of a wave that went up to that level and now it's just slightly waned somewhat. And I don't think it should be that way. I think we need, like I said, more dining, more entertainment. And we need to celebrate the heritage buildings that we have.
But not expand beyond what has already been placed within the HCD.
Not expand outside of the HCD?
Right.
No, I think
I mean, expand the HCD even further, right? Because that's part of the conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I don't understand why it needs to be expanded further. What it encompasses right now are several buildings that are non-contributing to the heritage, and so there's a bit of a mix there. Those will be subject to scrutiny, too, under an HCD should somebody want to remove it, and rebuild on that site. So that's actually what scares me a little bit, just who's governing what goes in there. I mean, there are architects and there are designers and contractors, but who's going to be making those decisions as to what it looks like? Because it gets personal at that point and subjective. So I'm a firm believer, though, you need to celebrate the heritage, but you cannot recreate heritage. You can't manufacture heritage, I think is a better way to put it. A beautiful building like the digital library, for instance, that can't change and nothing can go around it. Obviously, it's on the river, but putting something beside it, you can't sort of mimic it because you lose the context of its heritage in the mix of, I think, something that does not really celebrate what it is, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a beautiful building too. That digital library, right? Yeah. It really is. The most recent conversation at council, where this decision on the expansion of the HCD boundaries has been deferred, are you optimistic at all, based on the conversations you've had with the city, that some sort of acceptable compromise can be reached in this?
Well, first, I don't understand the expansion, to be honest with you, because that area is not one that's traveled by anybody in terms of, the people that even live in the town other than that area itself, or from a tourism perspective. It's not a place where you would go. However, it's a place where if it's not protected, I think the fear within the city is that somebody's going to take some of that, raise it, and put something up. I think so. There's a protectionism, and that's what it really feels like to me. The electric fence that goes around there, and it you can't go in there. You can't touch this spot. That's what I fear. And here we are. We in the last 10 years or 9 years that I've been down there, nobody's torn any buildings now, and no one has threatened to really change the dynamic of the downtown in any way that I'm aware of anyway. So, the boundary itself has been growing, and I wonder if it grows in the future as well. Like I'm a little skeptical there.
I hope we can find something that works for all concerned, because it is a gorgeous area, and I'm sure there's an interest in keeping it that way. But we also do need that vibrancy. There's no question about it.
100%. And don't forget, the LRT is slated to come down there, so we want to make sure people have places to go.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Terry, thanks for making time to come in today and talk about this.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Terry Poliak joins us. He's the president of Milestone Integrated Marketing and a property owner in the core of Galt. Do we expand the Heritage Conservation District or not? That's the conversation going on currently in the city of Cambridge. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We need those buildings, such as what the Gaslight was able to do. And thank God Scott Higgins was able to pull that off because it made a big difference downtown. So we need a few more big differences downtown. Not to be a Toronto, not to be a Kitchener by any means, because we only have a certain amount of real estate that surrounds the downtown core, but it's people that need to be there.
That is Terry Poliak, who's the president of Milestone Integrated Marketing and a property owner in the Galt core of Cambridge. He mentioned $14 million of his money in that core. And the conversation around a heritage conservation district, currently that conversation around whether or not that district should be expanded. Terry and others are asking if the heritage conservation district should exist at all, based on what he has seen. And obviously there's a vested interest here. But these are some of the growing pains that we experience as communities as we welcome more people. We try to create thriving and vibrant downtown areas. And I will say again that the core of Galt is one of my favorite places in this entire region for its natural beauty and charm. You've got the water, you've got all of the beautiful architecture, etc. We'll continue to follow the story because it's not unique to Cambridge. Other communities across this province, across this country are going through it. And we often have this battle between heritage and progress, if you will. All right, it is right around that time of day. I always promise to remind you because we have difficult conversations on the show. We talk about behavior that doesn't always please us. We call those who act in such a manner jackwagons. That's the name we give them on the show. But you know, not everybody is a jackwagon. That is a certainty. And you know how they say never to meet your heroes? I am so glad to have learned that one of these heroes of mine is absolutely not a jackwagon. I think you'll recognize this piece of music. That, of course, is none other than the Star Wars theme. And it's being played by a couple of 13-year-olds live on the sidewalk outside the home of the man who first created the score, the one, the only John Williams. So they go to John Williams's neighborhood, they set up, and they begin performing one of his signature scores. And wouldn't you know, midway through their performance, the front door of the house opens and John Williams himself walks out to listen to these 13-year-olds playing the Star Wars theme.
Hello! I started to listen. I thought, oh, they would never make it. And they did.
He made it. He's
played the
13.
Fantastic.
He's 13. This is Bryce Hayashi.
Hi.
I'm Michael Miller.
Hi, Mark.
He thought they would never make it to that conclusion, but they did. John Williams, I know you know his music, not just Star Wars, but he created the score for Superman, for Jaws, the first 3 Harry Potter movies, and so much more. From a sidewalk performance to a handshake with the legend himself. Sometimes the Force really does bring things full circle, and in this case, remind us that not everybody is a jackwagon. If you know somebody whose behavior is decidedly not jackwagon-esque, by all means, let me know about it. Just drop me an email, mike@570news.com. Happy to hear these stories, and we'll continue to share such stories on the show every day around 10:20. Just to remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon. I'm going to get you an update now from the 570 News Center, and then let's meet a local mom who has written a book about her invisible friend, but might not be the friend that you think it is. That story coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Okay, admit it. When you were a kid, did you have an invisible friend? I know I did. I won't tell you too much about him, but he hung out kind of in the places that I hung out. Sometimes he would hide in the closet, but that's what invisible friends do. But our next guest has an invisible friend that might be different than the ones that we had when we were kids. Our guest is Amanda Amaral, who's a local woman who is now a published author, and here to talk about her book, My Invisible Friend. Amanda, thank you for being here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about your invisible friend.
Yeah, so I had an invisible friend all my life, and that invisible friend is called ADHD. And so ADHD stands for Attention Hyperactivity Disorder. And it was a friend that followed me that I wasn't even aware of for all of my life. And it wasn't until recent years that I actually knew that I had ADHD. So my childhood was very fun, very lively, but it also had a lot of different struggles. So I was very forgetful, very talkative, got sent out in the hall a lot in school. But as I grew, the struggles grew. But there was also a lot of gifts. Like I was very creative, very charismatic, very brave and bold and daring. And so I wanted to write this book about my invisible friend ADHD because it wasn't just me that had this friend. There's many children, many people, and especially many women who do have ADHD, and it is actually very underrepresented and underdiagnosed, especially in women.
What was it like for you, Amanda, as an adult? Because you said it was just a few years ago that you finally got this diagnosis. So you'd had this invisible friend your entire life, not really knowing that she was there. And all of a sudden, poof, the light bulb goes off. The friend gets a name. What was that like?
Yeah, so it actually brought a lot of clarity into what was going on. And it actually, the reason that I found out I had it was because when you become a mother, you become responsible for not only managing your chaotic life, but your household and trying to regulate your children and keep up with household chores and work and balancing it all. And it came to a head, and I had to figure out like what was going on. And a lot of the times in women, ADHD is misdiagnosed as other things like anxiety, burnout, depression. And so when I finally tried to figure out what was happening with me, I realized that I had this ADHD all my life. And when I finally got the clarity, I was like, oh, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. I've just been built a different way that once you find that out, you learn how to manage it better because things that help people that don't have ADHD don't necessarily help you. So, for example, trying to get a planner, trying to keep a calendar, those things might work for regular people, but with somebody with ADHD, you might need different techniques. So it was actually very eye-opening and clarifying for me when I found out that I had it.
When you kind of pour this authentic self into the pages of a book, what was that experience like for you? Because that's a very personal thing.
Yeah, to be honest, it was very nerve-wracking for me. So I do have like a corporate day job, which I've been working there for 14 years. I do very well. But when I put this book together, my biggest fear was, oh no, now I'm going to be quote unquote out at work. In life. And like close family and friends did know I have ADHD, but it was a very vulnerable experience for me to put myself out there and to tell everybody that I had this invisible friend. But the thing is, the stigma and stereotypes are only crushed when people spotlight themselves and they open themselves up. And so actually when I came out, the reception has been amazing. So at work, once I shared my story, other people started to tell me, actually, I have dyslexia. Actually, I have anxiety. And I've spoken with vice presidents and CIOs that actually do live with these invisible influences that are not necessarily talked about. But the only way to break the stigma is to have an open conversation about it. So it was a very vulnerable experience, but the community and online or locally have been very supportive of it.
Why did you decide a book was the way to do this?
So I love children's books. We actually have a very big collection of children's books, like over 3,000 copies. And bonding over reading is something that is huge in my household. And so I wanted to write a book because I feel that children need to know, and people need to know, that they have strengths. And a book is a great way to get that across. And I actually always loved writing. And so as you grow, you start to lose touch sometimes with the things that brought you joy when you were a child. And so I always loved to write. And I loved to journal. I loved to write poetry and jingles and songs. And so when I got back in touch with my writing, I realized there is a lot of processing and joy that you can find in writing and in sharing your story. And once you share your story, it opens other people up to share theirs, and they can feel seen in your story and feel more comfortable with sharing theirs.
I should have specified, this is a children's book, My Invisible Friend, ADHD. What was writing the book like for you?
Yeah, so it was a completely new experience. I wrote the poem, so it's all written in rhyming. But once I wrote it, I thought, you know what, I need to publish this. But I had no idea how to do that. So the biggest part was finding the right illustrator. And thankfully, I found a new graduate from Seneca Illustration Program. And she worked with me for a 7-month period to bring this story to life. And then I had to figure out all the nuances about printing and distribution and marketing, which is we could do a whole segment on publishing a book, but it's been a very joyful experience. So it didn't feel like work. It felt very interesting and purposeful. So I was happy to learn about it.
How has the book been received?
It's been amazing. So the book just launched on February 17th, so less than a month. And it has, the mayor was at my book launch party at the end of February. It's going to be in the Waterloo Catholic District School Board in every elementary school. And I had the director of education at that book launch party as well. So it has been beyond my wildest dreams. The way people have opened up to this story and resonated with it, whether you have ADHD or not. The story is about, focusing on your gifts and your strengths and knowing that it's our differences and what makes us unique that actually makes us special, and it's our gift to the world. So it's really been resonating with people. It hit bestseller on Amazon. It's in some bookstores across Waterloo, so I couldn't be more happy with how it's taken off.
Take me through the story. How do we learn about our invisible friend ADHD in your story?
Yeah, so the book is all written in rhyming. It's in a first-person narrative. So it follows the story of a girl who has incredible gifts, and she realizes that, she's very creative, charismatic, and fun, and she has this invisible friend that journeys with her on adventures and makes life very interesting. But then it gets into some of the struggles. So some of the things like, it's hard to sit still in class when you have this invisible friend bouncing around in her seat. It's hard to remember where did you put things when, this invisible friend is constantly losing things or pushing homework till last minute. But it really wanted to focus on the strengths and the gifts and also introduce some self-regulation techniques. So things like, fidgets, spinners, going for nice, healthy dinners or resting or running, things that would resonate with these kids and these parents so they could better understand what to do to help bring that spark back when things can get overwhelming.
You mentioned, Amanda, what you've learned about the publishing process and all that's involved with that. You talked about a successful 14-year career, professional career that you're still in the midst of. You've got 3 young ones just outside this studio. Plenty, obviously, on your plate. But is there another book in you? Have you thought about that?
So the funny thing is with ADHD, once you get focused and once you find something that really sparks your interest, you go all out. So I actually have like 20 books written already, but I had to slow myself down and say, Amanda, take it one book at a time. But this Invisible Friend book is actually going to be part of a series. So I wanted to make a book or a series that talked about all the invisible influences that children and people live with. So my invisible friend autism, my invisible friend anxiety, and even things like my invisible friend asthma or these physical conditions that are not readily apparent. Because like I mentioned, when I started talking about my story with ADHD, a lot of people around me said, oh, you know what? I live with dyslexia, which makes it hard for me to do X, Y, Z. And so I realized that there are many different, things that people live with, and that is not very represented in books and in stories and in conversations. And I just want to make that more visible for everyone.
It is called My Invisible Friend, ADHD. It's a children's book written by author Amanda Amaral. How does that sound? Published author.
That sounds amazing. It's still surreal to me, but it's amazing.
Where can we find the book?
So the book is on Amazon. It's available in Canada and the U.S., and then it's also at Wordsworth Books in Waterloo.
All right. My Invisible Friend, ADHD, the author Amanda Amaral, who's far busier than anybody really needs to be, but seems to be handling it well. Thanks for stopping in this morning. It's great to meet you, and good luck with the book.
Thank you so much.
This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. .49 on your St. Paddy's Day, Marn. I hope you have enjoyed all things Irish so far today. I totally forgot to wear green. I don't know why. I guess it's because I get up early in the morning and my goal is just to get out the door on time. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to scrape that car off this morning. It was a full-fledged winter drive to the office today. I'm not a fan of it, Sam. I am. You cannot make me like this winter and ham or something like that. By the calendar, the winter has just a few days left. Speaking of which, oh my goodness gracious. So we talked about last week the passing of Wiarton Willie, right? Everybody's favorite, at least everybody in Ontario's favorite weather forecasting groundhog. Have you heard that, and the search for a new Wiarton Willie is underway, but good old PETA, leave it to PETA, the people for the ethical treatment of animals, to get involved and say, we really shouldn't be using a groundhog for this annual event. What we should do instead is have the mayor hold up his hat to see if there's a shadow and not subject the groundhog to this cruel treatment that he gets, a nice warm den to live in and gets well fed on a regular basis by his handlers. Yeah, what a terrible thing to do to a groundhog. Anyway, according to the calendar and the late, great Wiarton Willie, spring is literally just around the corner. It's supposed to arrive on Friday. It will arrive, meteorologically speaking. My neighbor, when we were out shoveling on the weekend, said to me, it's good news that spring is just around the corner. The bad news is the corner is in Toronto. And we had a little chuckle about that as we were outside clearing away the snow that had fallen on the weekend. We are in, as you know, a municipal election year. We're going to go to the polls in October the 26th, to be exact, of this 2026, this year, 2026. And something we've learned here in the region, City of Waterloo, couple of councillors, Royce Bodley, Jen Vasic, announcing they will not be seeking re-election. And we learned yesterday from his post on social media that the mayor of Guelph, Cam Guthrie, has decided to not seek re-election. 3 terms as mayor, and he says he's going to step aside and pass the baton to the leader our voters choose. Reading from Guelph Mayor Cam Guthrie's post on social media, serving in this role has been an honor and a joy, which made this decision incredibly difficult. Yet I'm also at peace with it. Most importantly, it has the full support of my amazing wife, Rachel, and our children. We're working on getting Mayor Guthrie onto the show tomorrow. We can talk to him more about this and find out what was behind the decision. Because as we know, municipally, when it comes to elections, incumbency is a huge advantage. And I didn't get the sense that Mayor Guthrie was in any way unpopular enough to not win a fourth term, but maybe he just figures 3 terms and out. Kind of like in the city of Waterloo, councillors, Bodley and Vasic, 2 terms and out. Maybe they're setting their own term limits. I don't know. But anyway, Mayor Cam Guthrie not seeking re-election in Guelph after 3 terms as the city's mayor. Do you remember our friend Arnold Radford? We had him on the show last week to talk about e-scooters on our sidewalks, on our trails, on our roads, etc. And Mr. Radford has appeared in the past before our regional council, and he was back again last week, and then he came on the show to talk about his concerns. Here's a little bit of what he had to say, and I'm reminding you of this because of some new statistics that have just come out. But here's what Arnold Radford had to say at Regional Council last week.
The fact remains, pedestrians walk out of their house, they step onto transit, they walk into schools or businesses, or any brick and mortar location. Pedestrians are not going away. They are intrinsic to everything. This is precisely why our sidewalks and trails must be protected from the proliferation of electric vehicles. Placing rental scooters on sidewalks at transit intersections is irresponsible and contrary to bylaw. It sends signals to private scooter owners that sidewalks are their domain. In October, while driving on Union Street at Belmont, a rented scooter and an e-motorcycle came directly into the road from the trail. They did not stop to press the flashing light for me to stop for pedestrians. They just came onto the road. Luckily, no collision, nor damage to my vehicle, nor attempt to try to blame me through a dysfunctional bylaw and road safety system. These vehicles should not be on the trail. They should be on the road, following the Highway Traffic Act. This is an issue of massive legal implication.
Now, you know that you have a sympathetic ear in me to what Arnold Radford is talking about. I think these lithium-ion battery-powered vehicles of all sorts are in too many places doing too many dangerous things. And they ought to be regulated some way, somehow. E-scooters, bicycles, electric motorcycles, like it just keeps going on. And we've seen these enclosed mobility devices they're billed as, but really they're just tiny little cars that you run on a battery charge. Nonetheless, I bring up Arnold Radford's appearance at Regional Council and his concern with e-scooters because according to the latest statistics from Neuron Mobility Canada, which is the company that owns and operates that orange scooter program we see here in the region, trips were down, and trips were down rather significantly year over year. About 25% fewer rides in 2025 compared to 2024. Down to 127,000 rides over the course of the year. That's most likely because there are fewer and fewer international students in the community. But here's a number that stood out to me that I think we need to keep in mind. And I mentioned this when we had Arnold Radford on the show last week. I understand his concern. He shares that story about the e-scooter, e-bike that came flying across the street without stopping to push the button to get the flashing light signal so drivers could be aware. The massive legal implications here. Another factor we have to consider is scooter-related injuries. And we've been hearing about this across Canada, the increase in such injuries in nearby Mississauga. Council, at least one councillor is saying he wishes they had never started the program given the number of injuries. We saw 26 trips in an ambulance to a hospital due to e-scooter use last year. And that's up 50% from the year before. Now, I know 26 doesn't sound like an outrageous number. Twice a month. I get you. but a 50% increase year over year, somebody being taken to hospital by ambulance because of an e-scooter related mishap. We have to watch these numbers very carefully because I get what we're trying to do with the e-scooters, but think of the implications on our healthcare system and on our personal well-being, because I don't think we regulate these things tightly enough. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I forgot to get a special song to start this segment this morning. My bad. I'm sorry. I mean, there's nothing particularly special about the song, but it would have fit very nicely with the conversation. Everybody knows Rockwell's song, right? I always feel like somebody's watching me. I'm not even going to try to sing it. Don't worry, you are spared from that. But the reason that I would have chosen that song is because it's actually kind of, sort of true. You should always feel like somebody's watching you because they are. And our next guest certainly knows that. Neil MacArthur, who's the director of the Centre for Professional and Applied Ethics at the University of Manitoba. Neil writes recently about facial recognition technology. And as we welcome him to the show for the conversation, I wonder, Neil, if many of us even truly realize the number of times our faces are scanned and or recognized as we go about our daily activities, because I get the feeling this facial recognition technology is already in very widespread use.
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think all you have to do is just go for a walk, and you'll see those blue lights from those Ring doorbells. Those are the ones on people's houses. They can be a little harder to spot on businesses, but I think if you walk through downtown, I haven't been downtown London in a while, or Kitchener in a while, but I think if you walk down your downtown, like my downtown, there'd probably be quite a few cameras.
And this probably all came to the fore during a Super Bowl ad that showed how we could find a lost dog in the neighborhood through the use of these Ring doorbell cameras.
Yeah, kind of a self-owned by the company. They thought they were offering this great feature where they could activate all the cameras in the neighborhood and find your dog and track your dog. And people said, well, wait a second, couldn't you also do this for people? And the founder of Ring more or less said, oh, we're definitely going to do it for people.
Okay, what about the smart glasses technology that Meta has introduced?
Yeah, so you may have seen them around, the big chunky glasses with the light on when you're being recorded. But right now, you can record video anywhere you go. And what Facebook said in a leaked memo was, okay, well, we've got a great opportunity now that people are so distracted by ICE and all these other things. Maybe we could sneak in a feature where you can start to identify people's faces linked to their social media profiles using these glasses.
So that would mean that somebody that walks past me would record my facial features, plug that into Meta, and find my Facebook profile?
That's correct. You could be sitting on the bus, and someone could just look at you and find out who you are.
Why on earth would the company want to give people that power?
I think if they were going to make the pitch, I think one of the things people have said is, oh, well, wouldn't you just love to go to a party? You know, you go to a party and you can't remember anyone's name and puts the face to the name, and it's so embarrassing. Wouldn't that be such a superpower? I mean, remember, these are Silicon Valley people who spend most of their time networking at parties. But wouldn't it be great if you could just walk in and suddenly remember everyone's name or know everyone's name and introduce yourself? And, you know, wouldn't that just be such a social superpower?
Yeah. Okay. And so finally, we have the way that police services use facial recognition. And I'm thinking about something we talk about an awful lot here where I live, Neil, and that is automated license plate readers. So, you know, just driving by, you can scan that license plate, get all kinds of information from a license plate. But I'm sure police services are also able to use facial technology as well.
They absolutely are. I mean, they're doing it in the United States. They've experimented with it in Canada. Right now, the restriction on it is not technological. They've got the technology. the restriction on it is privacy law and the charter, which is thankfully acting as somewhat of a brake on it, but we're not sure quite how strong.
So what role does the federal government then play here in Canada to protecting us and our privacy?
Well, we have privacy commissioners who are supposed to be in charge of this, but privacy commissioners are charged with enforcing the legislation that exists. So right now, none of the legislation we have in Canada, other than in Quebec, mentions biometric data and facial recognition explicitly. So we right now pretty much outside of Quebec, we pretty much have nothing. We need better laws.
Okay, what would those better laws look like?
Well, first of all, they would define what, an expectation of privacy looks like, because, traditionally what we've said is, okay, you've got your home or your, private spaces where no one can really film you or photograph you without your permission. And then you step outside and you have no more expectation of privacy. And so people can film you and photograph you. But that was all, the expectation before filming and photographing also meant identifying and scanning and analyzing. And so we need to decide if we need to create a different expectation of privacy where, that means just because I'm outside in public, it doesn't give you the right to analyze my face and link it to my identity. That would be one thing we could do. The other thing is we could define what a search is, because right now, law enforcement can, they can't unreasonably search you. But they could take, they can look at you, and if they're wearing a body camera, does looking at you and then using that footage to identify you, does that count as a search? And do they need probable cause? Do they need to know that you're a person of interest, or can they just walk around seeing if anyone has anything interesting linked to their profile?
Yeah, that is a really interesting idea of how this could be used, because I remember years and years, I was just out of my teens, early 20s, and I got stopped walking home from the bus station late one night. I was carrying a knapsack, and a police cruiser pulled in front of me in a driveway and stopped me and asked. And I remembered enough from my high school law course, Neil, that I don't have to offer anything. They can ask, but I don't have to subject myself to a search. I did. And then I asked them what was going on. They said, well, there had been a robbery in the area, and you're walking around here with a bag, in the middle of the night all by yourself, blah, blah. And they figured they had some reasonable grounds to at least ask me some questions.
Right, yeah. And so that acts as somewhat of a brake on their activities. But yeah, when all they have to do is just, walk around for an hour and then plug all their footage into a database, that becomes a different thing.
Absolutely, it does. And aside from law enforcement, which we're talking about here, I wonder, and I think about this a lot, like when it comes to the websites that I'm on, rarely will I sign up for anything by way of a newsletter. I try to deny all the cookies. I think about those times where you're just talking about something and all of a sudden those ads are popping up on your phone. Like, I feel like we're being surveilled in that way for less than above board, shall we say, purposes by companies these days.
That's right. And I mean, that was sort of 50 degrees when we're the frogs in the water, and the internet and all the cookies and everything, that was kind of 50 degrees, and we're heading fast for 100 degrees. Because that's right. I mean, we all remember Minority Report, where they just scan your face and then give you targeted advertising. There's lots of ways in which, companies could monetize this kind of data.
So sometimes in these conversations, Neil, I get the sense that, AI might be an example, that it has advanced so much further than the regulation, we may not be able to rein it in. Do you feel as though we're at any sort of tipping point like that when it comes to facial recognition technology?
I think we're at the precipice. I don't think we're over it yet. I think that we can do it, but I don't think we have 10 years. I think that if we act now, we can definitely constrain this technology, but I think if we wait, I think we're finished. And
again, this is on the backs of our federal representatives and for federal privacy regulations.
I think it can happen at the provincial and federal level. We have provincial privacy commissioners. We have federal privacy commissioners. Quebec has taken the lead. I think other provinces could take the lead. But yeah, the feds. I mean, it'd be best to have the feds act. But if they don't act, I think the provinces should certainly.
It is a very interesting conversation, and I appreciate you being a part of it, Neil. Thank you very much for joining the show.
It was a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Neil MacArthur is the director of the Center for Professional and Applied Ethics and a professor of philosophy at the University of Manitoba. Joins us to talk about facial recognition technology and how little privacy protection we as Canadians are actually offered in the midst of all of this. I don't know about you, but that's why I bring these conversations to the show, so I can maybe find out more. I have very little expectation of privacy anymore. Period. If I wander out in public, if I go to a hockey game, if I go to a shopping mall, like, it really doesn't matter. I actually find myself, when Rosie and I go for our daily walks and, I'm by an apartment building or by a business, I find myself looking around to see where the cameras are, because every building, it seems, certainly every business has one. We have a neighbor with a doorbell camera that we rely on from time to time for information about what happened in the neighborhood, because hers is always active and always monitoring. And sometimes what we learn are the creatures that stir through the night and wander down the middle of our street, and her doorbell camera is always picking them up. And I don't know if I'm telling tales out of school by admitting that I don't have one. I don't want this much stuff. Like, I really, of the things that I need in my life, a doorbell camera does not feel to me like one of them. Maybe you use this technology and you absolutely love it. By all means, let me know about that. But when it comes to our privacy and our expectations of it, do you have any expectation of privacy anymore? I try my best when I'm online. I'm not signing up or even unsubscribing to prove that the email address that you somehow found is an active email address. I try to deny the cookies everywhere I go, all those different things. I don't do a whole lot of online shopping. I'm much more still an in-person shopper. I like going to bricks and mortar locations, especially to our local retailers. But I don't know. I just don't have any expectation of privacy. I remember a conversation we had on this show years ago, and fittingly, because today being St. Paddy's Day, I'm pretty sure this fellow was from Ireland, but he had posted online and we tracked him down. Those were the days we'd get deep into the weeds of things, and we tracked this guy down who had shared a year's worth, I believe it was, of his Google location. Was that what? Anyway, what his internet search engine knew about his whereabouts for an entire year. And it was mind-blowing how much of that kind of information we often unwittingly give away. And then, of course, it's stored, and that internet giant knew exactly where he had been pretty much every day for 365 days straight. And he shared this online as a bit of a cautionary tale. I think about that. And then I think about how technically illiterate I am in so many ways. Like, I don't know a whole lot about what's going on. I tried keeping up early on. The technology far outpaced my ability to keep up with it. So I couldn't even hazard to guess how deep down that rabbit hole I am insofar as what I've given away. But if you've got tips on keeping our privacy better protected, or even just your thoughts on how little privacy we have when we leave our homes every day. I mean, even those speed cameras are still being used to gather data. It's insisted it's not, facial recognition technology. And I'm sure that it's not, but your vehicle passing by this point at this time, and all kinds of stuff like that is going on out there all the time. Go to the bank, you're on camera. Go to the store, you're on camera. Come to work, I guarantee ding-dang-tee, I'm on camera all over this place. Obviously, as I stare into one that broadcasts this show on Rogers TV Cable 20 as well. But these cameras are everywhere. I bet we would be shocked to know the number that we walk past every single day. Do you have any expectation of privacy in your life today? Any tips that you'd offer to help us protect some of our own? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The expectation before filming and photographing also meant identifying and scanning and analyzing. And so we need to decide if we need to create different expectation of privacy, where that means just because I'm outside in public, it doesn't give you the right to analyze my face and link it to my identity. That would be one thing we could do.
One of several things I'm sure that we could do in order to ensure greater personal privacy in this day and age where somebody could be wearing Meta glasses, which, by the way, I also think look goofy. I mean, aesthetics aside, maybe you get a kick out of them. I don't know. But that was Neil MacArthur, who's the director at the Center for Professional and Applied Ethics, as well as a professor of philosophy at the University of Manitoba. He joins us to talk about facial recognition technology and how little protection of our privacy we are offered here in Canada by way of federal or even provincial legislation. Quebec seems to be leading the way on this, but other provinces have been slow to follow suit, if considering it at all. And if you think about what Ontario Premier Doug Ford is talking about today, allowing people driving alone in their vehicles to go into the high occupancy vehicle lanes, allowing booze to be consumed in public places, and carrying pepper spray for personal protection. I don't know that he's all that concerned about this either. For me, the barn door is pretty wide open here, and I have just resigned myself to the fact that I have less privacy than I ever would have dreamed possible. And that just encourages me all the more to find that little hamlet to live in someday without any computers or social media channels or anything like that. I'll just go to the coffee shop every day and sit around with the other cranky old men and discuss the day's events. And I'll try to stay away from every in municipality security camera, whatever municipality that is that I find to live in, on my way to the coffee shop. But I guess there'd be a camera at the coffee shop, wouldn't there? See, I'm hooped. I don't have a way to get out of this. Claudette sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com. I don't know if this helps, but when I go on the internet, I use the privacy mode. And at the end of the day, I clear my history and cookies from both my iPad and my mobile device. I also use antivirus protection and have set up stoplights on my husband's MacBook. I don't even know what stoplights are. You are a much smarter person than I am, Claudette, but I appreciate the email to Mike at 570news.com. Brad is with us on the phone this morning. Good morning, Brad.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you, Mike, and just, you know what, we live in a small town, so we don't get it like that, right? But you know, whenever we go into a larger town, of course, you get that. And you know, for 10 years now, I've always just assumed that, you know what, just assume that you're always on camera.
Yeah, no, it's so true, isn't it? Like, I honestly wonder how anybody gets away with anything these days, because there's cameras everywhere.
Cameras everywhere, and you just, it's almost just like you got to be on high alert, right? You know, if you're at a Jays game downtown Toronto, just assume that no matter what you do, you are being watched.
Bingo. Like, I'll bet you if you did something bad, they could probably trace you from different cameras from the time you got off the subway, if that's the way you went in, whatever, walked along Front Street, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. With some of these higher profile cases, I'm thinking like New York City when the CEO of that pharmaceutical company, that insurance company got gunned down a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
They had that live within like a half hour, right? And they're able to catch the guy. So that's where it's of use. That's where it's a value type thing, right? And they were like, got the guy like that, whatever, right? But man, no matter where you go, you are totally on.
It's so true.
You might as well say cheese instead, because you're definitely on camera for sure.
And we might as well be on our best behavior, right?
You got it. Take care, Mike.
Thanks, Brad. Good to hear from you today. This is the thing, right? This is the thing. I honestly don't know how anybody gets away with anything. But I'm with Brad on this one. I really don't have any expectation of privacy, and that really isn't what guides my behavior. I try generally, yesterday's show and my extreme grumpiness being the exception, I try generally to, conduct myself in a manner that would make my mother proud. So we'll just leave that there. But listen, you're out there, you're on camera somewhere. So as Brad says, just get used to saying cheese. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to introduce you to the Cambridge Community Players. Plus, sometimes the government gets it right, even on housing. And we'll tell you how in our next conversation. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. One of the biggest issues facing our community today, and I don't think we're unique in any way, this issue faces communities clear across the land. That issue is housing. And so in light of that, we schedule time every month with Philip Mills, who's the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, to talk about that very housing issue. Mr. Mills, good morning.
Good morning.
Sometimes I think we are sharing one mind, and that's a frightening prospect for many who know us, but gosh,
I just wish better for you to be stuck in my brain. Sounds like a terrible place for somebody else.
Well, the funny thing is, and it is almost funny, if anybody heard this show yesterday, they heard the crankiest of cranky old guys complaining about everything. And all was lost for me on this show yesterday, Phil. And I was blaming the government for absolutely, they don't do this, they don't do that. There's no leadership here, there's no leadership there. And, I think, and this is where we kind of align, I was probably doing that because it's pretty easy to do, isn't it? I was really going for the low-hanging fruit with my complaints yesterday.
It is easy. It's this big monolithic thing. Even to say the government, you're like, which government? Municipal government, federal government, provincial government? Where, who, what department of? It's just, there's such a, it is this omnipresent thing that doesn't have a face. It's really hard to, and you're like, why does this happen? You're like, it's the government has done this to us. And once again, they've done something they shouldn't. It's an easy thing to put, because sometimes there are these big, complicated problems. Housing is a great example. These big, complicated problems. And who do you point at? Who do you say whose fault any of this is? And whose fault is this? Whose fault is that? That's the government.
That was exactly the recurring theme on the show yesterday. So let's talk about those times. And it's very fair to point this out. The government does get it right. I mean, we've managed to get this far in our world. And you are looking specifically at the Making Life More Affordable for Canadians Act. What are you seeing within that piece of legislation that gives you hope?
So there's a couple of key points in that were there around, taxation and things. But the stuff that's the most, in my world is the removal of GST on new sale homes. This is first time home buyers credit, so that if you go to buy a new home, GST is removed. That's a huge deal. I don't know that everybody always thinks about this. I didn't ever think about it. My first home that I bought was on the resale market, and so it didn't have the taxes apply. But if you buy a new home from a builder or developer, that has taxes, and that makes sense. We pay tax on things. So the removal of that tax on a product as expensive of a house is a massive change. How do you make things more affordable? We often talk about cut costs, cut taxes, cut those things. Taking that off of housing can have a really substantial impact. And so I think the government deserves some credit, sometimes. And rightfully, I think they get a lot of scorn. But in this case, saying, hey, can we do something to make housing more affordable? And we have been talking about this for a lot of elections. I've been talking to you about governments and the things they could do. Election over election over election. What are they going to do? This one actually happened. This wasn't just an idea. It was a promise that actually came true and said, we're going to cut tax here, which I think is at least worth some, commendation to say thank you.
And when we are talking about the removal of this tax, I mean, we're into the tens of thousands of dollars in financial savings. That's the difference it makes. And if we break that down even further, I think, Phil, we can start to see the real life impacts a change like this has.
Yeah, just think for your mind, if you're going to go out and buy a new home for $700,000, just quick math, that HST is over $90,000 is what you would pay on that. So how that gets listed in those things and how that's, usually done when you see, a new product listing, it's a little bit different. But the reality is you are paying $90,000 in tax. Okay, You get some rebates on that. There's about $24,000 in rebates that you can kind of get up to on the provincial side. But by and large, you're talking $60,000 plus in taxes. Okay, what does that mean on a mortgage? And that's where my mind went. Okay, if you're not paying $60,000, your mortgage is $60,000 less or $67,000 less. What does that mean? You could be talking, couple $100 a month. What does that mean for your life? Like, I think, I know I talk about them a lot. Like, I got 3 young boys, and they are not cheap. Like, they just aren't. Life is expensive. And I'm telling you, young boys do not make it cheaper. Like, it's just part of this, right? Like, they are rowdy and they're great and they break stuff all the time, and I have to replace that, and apparently I need to feed them, and they need to be in sports and all of the things that come with life. Like, that's our expenses, and those expenses are going up. And if the fact that your mortgage could be hundreds less a month because a tax has been removed, that is the money to pay for soccer registration. That is the money to pay for that extra tank of gas to go to the hockey tournament. It is the money to pay for the retainer that one unnamed son may keep breaking because he takes it out and then leaves it on the counter and then pushes it onto the floor and then maybe steps on it multiple times, not to put too fine a point on it. Like, there's just these, like, life happens. Hundreds of dollars a month back into your account because the government has changed the tax. Like, that helps you when life happens. So I think there is something real here for people as you look at, nothing's perfect. And I will not be the first to, say there are times where the government does things and I don't like it. There are times where the government makes policies and it seems kind of dumb. This is not a perfect policy. This doesn't fix housing forever. But man, for the people that get this benefit when they're talking about trying to afford a new home, like, this is not nothing.
And when you break it down the way you just did, that's where it starts to make sense, right? Because if we can remove ourselves from this faceless monolith that you've described, that is the government, that is the object of so much of our scorn, and we break it down like this into real life examples of where that money could be and likely will be redirected when it's not just going into a simple tax on a home. Fantastic. And I think sometimes that's the message that we need to hear, because it can be a difficult issue to talk about and a difficult file in people's lives. How am I ever going to be able to afford this home?
Yeah, like, this makes that more affordable now. This is that idea of saying, look, that house price that seemed out of reach, is it closer to within reach? Is it now within reach that you're talking, that 13% reduction in cost? And because the benefit of this, and what we have seen already since the federal government has said we're doing this and has passed this through Royal Assent, the provincial government's going to follow suit. They've been really clear. We're following suit. This is something that they have been talking about and they've been saying they will do. They were waiting for the feds to move. And so we can expect to see not just a partial relief, but a total, 13% relief on those taxes. Like, that's a big deal. And this is how, it's slow and it's cumbersome and it takes time. But in the end, taking tens of thousands of dollars off of the price of a home does matter and is something that is going to help. Now, we got to be careful. Like, this is not a panacea. This is not the end of things. This is not now they've done this and everything is great. It is what needs to be one of many tools and one of many steps that we're expecting of government to try and make things more affordable for people. But they deserve a win. Like, they did something good here. We should, say, yeah, you did something good. We appreciate you doing something good. Thank you for doing something good. We expect you to keep doing good things. But before we get to the, we can celebrate the wins as they happen, celebrate the good movement, and still hold government accountable to saying you need to keep acting to help making life more affordable. But we have to stop and say thank you or say you did a good job from time to time, because if all nothing is ever good enough. Like, that's the way we often approach this. And I don't think that's entirely fair to people who are, for all intents and purposes, like, trying their best to make our communities better.
So I feel as though we're sharing that mind again for a moment, because I was wondering that very thing that you just alluded to, Phil. This isn't perfect, but it's a good piece of the puzzle. It's not a silver bullet, but it's moving us in the right direction. What other things could or should a government at any level be doing in order to make the dream of home ownership more of a reality?
I think there are lots of interesting stuff governments can do, and I think everyone has some different levers they can pull. Like, I really like the idea where we see governments talking about using their assets. They have land assets. They have, pieces of land that they're not utilizing. Okay, land is one of the biggest factors in cost for housing. If you're going to go build a house, you have to buy that land. And when that land is expensive, that gets passed on to the end user. So Are there ways that we can start accessing and utilizing government land? Because right now it's not doing anything. We're not leveraging those sort of things. And all levels of government have talked about that. We've seen really good work from our municipal government, both in Waterloo and in Kitchener, utilizing what they're calling surplus land to make more affordable housing happen. Like, that's great. I want to see more of that. Lots of opportunities. I want to see more of that from the province. I want to see more of that from the feds. Are there ways to utilize the assets they have to make more housing happen and to happen in ways? So I think that stuff is really encouraging. And so we just more of the same. Like, there are opportunities. The stuff is not unknown. We don't need a silver bullet. What we need are a bunch of really smart, logical steps, tool after tool after tool to bring these costs down. Removing HST is a fantastic one. Realizing and utilizing accessible and surplus land, that's another amazing. There are opportunities along the way, and all of those things together might create our silver bullet. It's not one or the other. It's all of this stuff can make housing affordable again if we start seeing those things come into practice. And so we have to be excited to see movement and, vigilant to keep pushing for more. Like, that's the work of not-for-profits and advocacy, is to say, you did the right thing, and I'm going to now ask you to do the next right thing.
Well, it's the message we needed on the day we needed it, after I was blaming the government for pretty much everything in my life yesterday, Phil. Always look forward to these conversations, and here's to hoping that between now and our next conversation in April, you can have the same retainer in some unnamed child's mouth for the entire time.
Oh, my kingdom for a single month with one retainer. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the time as always.
Phil, thank you. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye. Bye. Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, Waterloo Region. He joins us on the third Tuesday of every month at 11:30 for a little chat about housing. And in the case of this month's conversation, hey, you know what? That federal government's Making Life More Affordable for Canadians Act, which last week received royal assent, is making meaningful change. It's not the cure-all, but it is a step in the right direction. And, I'm just thinking on that, and the tens of thousands of dollars that Phil broke it down into of savings. And I'm thinking about what a home cost. So I can, I can even put it in my own terms, because I was lucky to get in just before things started going really wild. And it's still hard to believe. It was only 11 and a quarter years ago. I bought in December of 2014. And at the time, I was able to get the house for about 3 times my income. What are we looking at today in terms of your income versus the cost of that home? 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 times what your income is. It's pretty wild when you think about it. And of course, you go back to, our parents' day, and it was probably 2, maybe 2 to 3 times the income. It was just over 3 times my income 11 and a bit years ago when I bought my first home. And just to think about that being a possibility today, boy, oh boy, you have to be making a pretty significant income, don't you? So where did all of those costs come from? And I think Phil's point on the availability of land, or the land costs in any real estate transaction, is one of the biggest. So surplus land, I'm thinking of you, Charles Street Terminal in downtown Kitchener. We had a guest on from the University of Waterloo arguing in favor yesterday of using that land for affordable housing. I still think that land in downtown Kitchener should be used for some. We can find other surplus land. We might even be able to swap surplus lands, in my opinion, because I think that land in downtown Kitchener can really be something exciting. Not everything has to solve a problem. I think we've got some room to dream too, but I like where Phil is coming from with the positive sign that he has seen from our federal government in the past week. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Given the conditions outdoors today and how frigid they are, I've been reminding you as often as I can that spring starts on Friday, don't you know? Also on Friday, the curtain will rise on the production of Rope, put on by our Cambridge Community Players, their final show of the 2025-26 season. And one of the performers in the show joins the show this morning. Connor Ambler is with us. Connor, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Good. Glad to hear that. Melissa Harthold is with us as well. Melissa is the stage manager for the production of Rope. Melissa, good morning.
Good morning.
Connor, let me start with you, if I could. What's it like performing with the Cambridge Community Players?
It's a fantastic community to be a part of. You can feel a real passion from everybody, and it's just a great kind of welcoming environment from everyone. You feel like you are there to create something really powerful, and it just feels like a very wonderful space to be in with a lot of great people.
Even looking at the poster for the production of Rope, kind of, I don't know, it tells me an awful lot, but explain to me the story that you're performing in, Connor.
So essentially, two people want to prove that they're intellectually superior to their classmates. They end up murdering one of their classmates and then hosting a dinner party around it. My character, Granillo, has a lot of guilt regarding this, so as the play continues, he kind of falls apart and becomes more and more hysterical as one of the partygoers, Rupert, kind of figures out what's going on.
This intellectual superiority, Connor, it's not something you would draw on real-life experience, would you?
No, absolutely not. Life is so valuable and so important, and the play kind of is that interesting of where does logic and emotion kind of dictate and why we make the choices we do. So I think that's a great part about the story.
Melissa, when it comes to the theater, the beautiful theater on Water Street South where you will be stage managing this production, what does that theater offer us as a space?
It's a beautiful space. There is the auditorium. We also have an upstairs rehearsal hall. We have a green room with a full bar that is open before and after the show. It's a beautiful theater. It's belonged to the community for 91 years, and we're proud to be able to continue to use it.
So the curtain rises on Friday night, as I've mentioned. Can you tell us how we can get tickets?
Of course, on our website is cambridgecommunityplayers.com, and we've got 7 shows to choose from this weekend and next weekend, so lots of opportunities.
I'm sure, because I mentioned, Melissa, that this is the final show of this season. We're getting a terrible feedback here. Am I missing something?
I'm not sure.
I was kind of half talking to the other side of the room here. Not on you, Melissa, but I'm just getting this feedback, and I can't quite figure out why we're having it. Do you have a radio on in the background? I don't think that's it. No. It would be a delay. I'm sorry, Melissa. Anyway.
That's okay.
I'm sure the planning for, how much time do you give yourself to rest before you're getting ready for the next season?
There's a couple months. So our show will be finished now, and our season closes for the summer and reopens again in September with a whole new lineup for 4 new shows coming next season.
You already have plans of what those shows might be?
We do, but they're not officially announced yet. We get the exciting part of being able to do that at the end of this show.
Very exciting stuff. So again, if we go to cambridgecommunityplayers.com, that's the place we'll be able to find our tickets for this show, Rope, opening on Friday.
That's right.
Melissa, break a leg, as they say in the industry. Thank you very much for being with us. And Connor, thank you very much for joining the show as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Connor
Ambler and Melissa Harthold joining us on the show. We somehow got that feedback taken care of, which was great, because I'm sorry, in case you couldn't tell, I felt like I was going a little bit nuts there for a moment. Listen, it is the beautiful Cambridge Little Theater on Water Street South. Cambridge Community Players have been there. You heard Melissa mention it, for more than 90 years now. Just one of those little theater companies that one of the great spaces being used for arts in our community and our opportunity to support the work that's being done. Connor Ambler, who's performing in the upcoming production of Rope. Melissa will be the stage manager. The curtain rises on Friday night, the 20th. Tickets are $25 for adults, $20 for students, and you can find details and the place to buy your tickets. I'm on the site right now, and there's an easy button that says buy tickets. Go to cambridgecommunityplayers.com. Rope.com. Production of Rope opening on Friday night. We love to put a focus. In fact, I was talking to my coworker, Justin Kohler, this morning, who was filling in on the morning news because Christine Clark's away. And Justin and I were talking about our theater kid backgrounds. We both love the theater. He got to perform in my favorite Shakespeare play, which I did not know until this very morning, 12th Night. That was the first Shakespeare play I studied in high school. And I think I was like many of us who didn't really understand or take much to Shakespeare. But once I learned more, and I think I have to credit Mr. Curtin, my grade 9 English teacher, for inspiring me to appreciate Shakespeare more. 12th Night's my favorite. And Justin got to perform in it. I spent some time on the stage in high school as well. Still love the theater, and if we can do anything to promote the great work going on in our community, then we absolutely will do that here through our show. Time to get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then open phone lines, our Talkback Hour, where you can start the conversation. I mean, my goodness, has our premier given us enough to talk about today? HOV lanes at certain hours for people who are alone in their car? Like people aren't doing that anyway, right? How about booze in public? Like people aren't doing that anyway, right? And you too could legally carry pepper spray if Ontario Premier Doug Ford gets his way. Like people aren't doing that anyway, right? Talkback is coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
And so begins another Talkback Hour here on the show. Phone lines open to you so that you can weigh in on the issues of the day. One of the big issues in the community, this being March the 17th, is the annual St. Paddy's Day bash, which kind of fizzled this year, didn't it? I think it was mostly the weather. Some students went out on Saturday afternoon. There were enough of them that police put out a public warning asking us to avoid, the regular us's in the region, to avoid a certain Waterloo neighborhood due to the, quote, high volume of individuals, end quote, that were out on the streets at the time. But not a whole lot materialized. Today, again, a very quiet day, probably too ding-dang cold, just like Saturday was probably too ding-dang snowy. I mean, I'd like to think the party has just run its course. I doubt that's the case, but we'll see what happens in the years ahead for sure. One thing that did happen, though, this year at the party was there was some overwatch being provided by police services whose job it is to ensure that these parties are safe for the attendees, even though the party itself is illegal. We keep one another safe around here. We watch one another's backs. And we had a very good conversation earlier today with Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, who explained in detail what the Overwatch is all about, why it's with a scope of a rifle and not binoculars or drones or anything like that, and reminded us that not only is this commonplace by way of oversight or overwatch for large events these days, but it's been happening for a while now. We probably just didn't see it. So there's that aspect of what's gone on around the St. Paddy's Day party. I think it's certainly interesting to talk about it. And as I said earlier, the hard part for me is just the realization, and I guess I just had my head too deeply in the sand, but the realization that this is the world we live in today, where some people have chosen to do really awful things when large crowds of us gather for a good time. And those things are so awful that we now need this level of security to ensure or try to ensure our safety during large events. It's a tough one for me to get my head around, and it disappoints me, frankly, but this is where we're at. So that's one of the big stories, obviously, in our community happy to hear your thoughts on that if you've got any you'd like to share. And I mentioned before the noon update. I mean, my goodness, is our premier on a roll or what? Let's allow open booze in public spaces when events are happening, concerts, etc., parks, whatever you may have. Let's legalize pepper spray for self-defense. And hey, while we're at it, why don't we just let those people who are driving their vehicles alone drive in the HOV, the high occupancy vehicle lane? Let's do that to improve traffic flow and reduce gridlock. I think people are doing all three of those things already. But nonetheless, some talking points perhaps as we begin Talkback this afternoon with our buddy Jersey Bill. He's going to start us off. Good afternoon, Billy.
Hey, when I heard the word Overwatch, just a quick thing to start off with, that's a military term.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's what we did in an infantry platoon or infantry squad. You would have one section to go out. They'd be the assault. They'd be rushing, and the other side would be overwatching them. They'd be laying down the fire if need. But those people came under fire. They'd be laying down to protect the fire. And it's sort of strange to hear that term used in a civilian context, but I guess it has the same kind of applications.
It does, and this is the world we're living in today.
Yeah. Now, just to talk about the crazy war. I wish we had a president who wasn't all over the place. The thing that economically, when gas prices were low, he went to the poor people that supported him and said, "Look how much better at major lives gas prices are, as low as they've ever been." I guess comparatively, considering the value of the dollar these days. But now that gas prices have gone up, not only is it only going to be for a short time, but he's saying, well, because we're the greatest producer of oil, we're going to make the great profit. And, so he's essentially saying that all his billionaire buddies who are invested or controlling the great oil companies are profiting. And, of course, I guess we can expect some trickle down from that wonderful economic benefit to the U.S. But the whole thing is just absolutely crazy. He insists that NATO countries should help him stabilize the situation in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, of course. But now he's saying he doesn't need them; they can do it on their own. Every minute he's changing his mind depending on who has said what to him, or what is the latest crazy idea that's come through his mind. It's no way to fight a war. It's no way to stabilize the world situation. He's brought out the whole thing where I guess Obama had let some billions of dollars go back to Iran as part of the deal he tried to make with them, so he could so that the nuclear sites could have been inspected 10, 15 years ago. The idea of releasing money that a country has is a bad idea. And I guess in his mind, the only good deals are those where these foreign countries actually give him money directly, which, in the past would not be seen as a good thing, but that's the way he runs the world. And I'm sorry I've gone on this long, but that's the crazy president we're dealing with. And I just certainly hope that there'll be ways to keep him in check for the next few years before he does something really disastrous for the entire world.
All right. Jersey Bill, with his roots in his native New Jersey, the crazy president. I don't know that he is going to be kept in check at any time until his term in office is over. But I do appreciate the acknowledgement of this idea that other nations now, other NATO allies, should support you in the war that you started to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That's great. You started it. You made this mess. Now it's up to us to help you clean it up and commit militarily to it. Come on with your coming on is my response to that. Nate, Farwell's Force member number 8. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I just wanted to go over something that you said this morning. Did you say that you rake up your dog poo and put it in the leaf bag?
Yeah. It's yard waste.
Do you not have the yard waste? It's pet waste, Mike. It doesn't go in your leaf bag. It goes in your green bin.
Well, it goes to the same place.
No, oh God! You have the Waste Whiz app, right?
Yeah.
Look
Are you telling you're telling me I can't put The dog poop I rake up off the lawn into the bag with the other yard waste?
No, who wants to smell that at the leaf dump?
Well, have you been to the leaf dump, Nate?
Not in a while.
Okay, well, the rotting yard waste doesn't smell very pretty. This can't be a problem. I'm not doing it wrong, am I?
Well, if you look at the Waste Whiz app, it doesn't say anything about putting it in with your yard waste.
Well, it's organic as far as I'm concerned. It's coming up off the grass. Like, it's just... I would
agree, but, maybe you need to, what is that you like to say, amalgamate your feces?
I have said that before. I would be shocked if this is an incorrect application or removal of the waste. I mean...
Well, next time you have someone on in the know, maybe mention it to them.
All right.
Ask them if you're doing a no-no, but in my opinion,
it sure as hell ain't going in my green bin. I'll tell you that for free.
Why? It's so big now. You can put a leaf bag inside there and then just throw your dog poo in there.
Oh, my goodness.
You can wheel it around the yard.
All right. This is enough talk about dog poop.
Okay. One more thing real quick. I heard that the capital city of Ireland is growing exponentially.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, some people say it's Dublin.
Okay. I knew there was a punchline coming. Thank you, Nate. We're all a little Irish today, aren't we? Terry, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. There's one thing about Jersey Bill. He has that same thing in common with Liberal Bob. Liberal Bob's going to talk about Pierre Poilievre, and Jersey Bill's going to talk about Donald Trump.
That's true. But I mean, listen, if you're American, no matter which side of the political fence you fall on, it's impossible to not talk about Donald Trump, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, it wasn't a knock. I'm just saying that they're pretty much, what they're going to talk about. Sure. Stuff and then not. But, hey, Mike, I'm glad you're doing the disco thing, man. That, by far, that is the best era in music.
Whoa, easy, big fella. Easy.
Mike, I'm a rock and roll guy, but I appreciated disco. I think you might have been a little too young to appreciate it back in the day, but it was the era, man. I'm telling you. And I'm looking for, I want the Kitchener Rangers to play in the first round, Mike?
I didn't catch that.
Do you know who I would like to see the Rangers play in the first round?
Who you would like to see them play? No, who's that?
Yeah, the Guelph Storm. Because I just want to see you and Walter go back and forth on that. Because Walter, hey, he's a big Guelph guy.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Mike, the man loves you, but I know he likes to get under your skin regarding the Guelph Storm and the Rangers rivalry. So
that's okay. We're 7-1 against them this year, pal.
Oh, I know. But you got to admit, though, the Guelph has been a little more successful than the Rangers over the last few. Wow, they went to the Memorial Cup more recently than the Rangers. So.
Oh my gosh! Yes, absolutely. We were talking about all the banners that were up there when we were there on Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing you and Walter go back and forth on that. It'll be entertainment anyway. So. That's all I had to say, sir. And I'm glad you picked disco. I was gonna call in within the last couple of weeks and mention that, but you beat me to the punch, Mike.
Well, there you go, Terry.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too. Appreciate you. For what it's worth, I do hope that the Rangers play Guelph in the first round as well, because that's a really easy road trip. It could be Guelph, it could be Owen Sound, it could be Saginaw that the Rangers face in the first round. And speaking of first, how about first place in the Western Conference and home ice advantage for as long as the Rangers are in the playoffs? That's what's on the line tonight at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. It's a Tuesday game day, baby, and it's a big game. Flint is in town. If the Rangers get a point tonight, they will wrap up first place in the Western Conference and home ice advantage for as long as they are in the playoffs. The next closest team to them in the standings, the Flint Firebirds. That's a big game. Third last game of the regular season. Big game tonight. If you can't be there, I would recommend you go. By all means, get yourself a ticket. If you can't be there, though, we've got you covered right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. Josh Piercy and I will get things started with the Harris Law pregame show at 6:30 and run right through Rangers talk after the game, taking your calls about this remarkable Rangers season. They might have 100 points in the standings for back-to-back seasons, first time in franchise history. So, big game tonight. Could be Guelph, could be Owen Sound, could be Saginaw. The Rangers face in the first round of the playoffs. We'll get that sorted out later this week as the final games of the season are played. And just to Terry's point on the disco theme, yes, that is the theme for our All Request Friday this week. I think we still have a few more spots. I mentioned the theme yesterday, and the emails started pouring in. So you want to try to get a spot, we go first come, first served. So if there's a disco song that you would like to hear, by all means, drop me an email, mike@570news.com, and we'll play your favorite disco tunes on Friday during our all request show. Terry might be right. Maybe I was a little bit young for that. I can understand how if you were of that age, you'd party, right? Like that was the party music of the late 70s. But as far as music goes, so this is going to be the all request theme that makes my ears bleed. But everything I do it for you, or so sang Bryan Adams at one time. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Tracy sends me an email to mike@570news.com. Mike, I'm sorry to do this to you, but pet waste does go into the green bin with the link to the waste app. Listen, Tracy, I get this. I do. I think this is my interpretation of the rules, so forgive me. It can go in the green bin, but it doesn't have to. Like, I could just leave that stuff on my lawn and let it disintegrate, couldn't I? So how is that any different than putting it into the yard waste bag where it just goes and disintegrates in a big old pile of compost? I know that it can. I just think it doesn't have to. Am I really doing it wrong? I don't think I'm going to call the region of Waterloo. I'm going to find out about this. I know pet waste can go in the green bin, but I think it can also go in that brown paper yard waste bag. Can it? Why not? It's just organic stuff. You fertilize your gardens with that stuff. You fertilize your gardens with compost. I'm standing on my side of this one, but I appreciate all of the support. Let's get back to the phones to try to get me on the right track. Preston Paul is with us on Talkback, Farwell's Force, member number 45. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Mike. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I don't know if I can get you back on track with that one or not.
It's okay.
Yeah, got a couple of things. First of all, you're killing me with your music suggestions. A couple of weeks ago, you wanted everybody to pick a crappy song. And now you're bringing disco back. Man,
it's like the same theme.
Me.
I'm sorry. It is terrible, isn't it, Paul?
Oh, God. I shivered on Monday when you announced it when I was listening to This Week in Music History. And I thought, oh, Lord. I was 19 at the time when the drinking age was raised up. And you go where the women go, and they were listening to that and going to the bars and listening to it, and I couldn't stand it back then, and I can't stand it now.
See, that's why Terry liked it, because he was going to the bars, and that's where he met girls.
Yeah. Anyways, you have a great day, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. Good to hear from you. I listen, I feel your pain. I don't like disco either. It was a spontaneous decision when we were talking yesterday on the show with Brian Allison, our musicologist who joins us Monday mornings, 11 a.m., This Week in Music History, and he was talking about the incredible songwriting prowess of the brothers Gibb. And I thought, you know what? We should just use this as the theme right there. It's staring us right in the face because they had the top three spots on the charts This Week in Music History were all Gibb brothers songs performed by different artists. But it happened This Week in Music History, so I thought, why not? We'll just extend it. Surely there's more disco than just the Bee Gees. Sadly, there's more disco than just the Bee Gees. What an awful genre of music. But that's what we're doing for All Request Friday this week. That's okay. We're in it together. Misery loves company. Kyle is next on Talkback. Farwell's Force member number 6. Hello, Kyle.
What's up, buddy? First of all, I feel like Trump is playing a game of Risk. So do we get to claim Minnesota since they're closest to Canada and they have I like their hockey team? Is that okay?
Only if you call it Minnesota.
Minnesota, bud?
Minnesota, yeah.
This St. Patrick's Day, it's just another reason why everybody wears green and drinks all day. But where my family's from in Eastern Europe, that's just called a Tuesday, and we don't even wear green.
You don't even wear green?
No, we just drink every day.
You're my kind of people, Kyle.
Exactly. And song request for Friday, Rick Dees and his Cast of Idiots is the band called. And the song is called Disco Duck.
You're the third person to request it, Kyle.
You know what? Then that means I just have a good taste in music, right?
No, it does not mean that. But it means you're the third person to request it.
It's okay. As long as these other people like it, that's all that matters, right? So
Fair enough.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike. Have a good day, my friend.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate the call. Disco. What was I thinking? It was a moment of weakness during This Week in Music History yesterday. Debbie sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. I have to totally disagree with you this time. Your dog poop can't go in the brown bag. They put that in chippers and stuff like that. It has to go in the green bin. Does it? No, because I've seen it. You can take your brown bags to the dump and drop them off if you want to take them yourself. And they just sit there in a big old pile of rotting yard waste. I don't. And the poop doesn't stay. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, but no, pet waste should generally not go in yard waste. It is usually considered garbage. This is different. Don't believe AI. I'm standing on this one. I was telling the story this morning about friends who were out a couple of weeks ago when the weather was cold and they were picking up the frozen turds and making a big deal out of how much work this was, prying it all out of the snow as it had begun to melt, and they wanted to get it before it thawed. I'm like, why? Just do like I do. When the snow's gone, you rake your lawn like we all do. I just rake it all up with there's hardly anything there because it's mostly disintegrated over the winter. I don't understand. And then I put it in the yard waste bag. And I'm doing this wrong. Who knew all these years later? Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Talkback is your chance to do just that. We keep the phone lines open so we can hear directly from you on the show. Nancy is with us next. Nancy, good afternoon. You're on Talkback.
Good afternoon, Mike. I just couldn't help but call in about the pet waste situation. So I'm calling from Guelph, and we've had our bins for well over 10 years. Your green bin is also your yard waste bin. So you can put the pet waste. Yep. You can put your yard waste in the green bin. I do it all the time. I pick up all the loose branches that have fallen off the trees, and I drop my pet waste in there every day. So you can put it in the brown bags. They all go to the same place, so long as what Waterloo is doing is the same as what Guelph is doing.
Okay, so I got to get this straight now, because I use the brown bags for my yard waste.
You can do that. You can do that.
That's what I've been. Okay, so my pet waste can go in there because it can also go in the green bin.
Sure it can.
Okay,
yep, it goes to the same place. It's all compost.
That's exactly what I thought, Nancy. See?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the help.
No problem.
And I love hearing from you in Guelph. How are things in Guelph today?
Freezing cold.
Too
cold.
It was
11 degrees. Same as over there. 11 degrees yesterday, minus 11 today. It's pretty darn cold to be out walking the dog. And which reminds me about the frozen poop in the backyard. I do that too. I pick up the frozen poop.
Really? Isn't it
Why
hard?
not?
It's harder work, Nancy. I don't want to just leave. That's my favorite part about winter. I don't like winter much, but at least I don't have to pick up dog poop every day.
No, it depends on how much snow is in the backyard. Because if there's a lot of snow, the poop is warm and it melts into a hole. I use a shovel for that, and then I literally throw it in my compost in the backyard.
Makes perfect sense.
And if it's like today when there's just a little bit of snow, the dog poop freezes hard, and then it's not all warm and squishy and gross. Yeah.
I love the tips, Nancy. Thank you very much.
Not a problem, Mike.
All right. Enjoy your day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
One of our listeners from Guelph. And you're not going to have a 4-term mayor in Guelph. Cam Guthrie announcing yesterday on social media that he will not be seeking re-election. We're working on getting Mayor Guthrie on our show. I'm getting a thumbs up from the other room. Mayor Guthrie is going to be on the show tomorrow morning. I'm going to get to the bottom of this, Guthrie. What do you mean you're walking away, quitting while you're ahead and stuff like that? Anyway, Guelph Mayor Cam Guthrie will join us on the show tomorrow morning, 9:30, to discuss his reasons for not seeking re-election. Talkback continues with our buddy Dallas. Good afternoon, Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Number 30 here.
Farwell's Force member number 30 in good standing. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
First thing I want to say is I'm not too happy with the lady upstairs we call Mother Nature today.
No kidding.
It's bloody cold out there.
It's terrible out there.
It is. But anyway, I felt compelled to call in about your query with the dog waste thing. And quite frankly, I do the exact same thing as you. Just this weekend when it was, reasonably warm and stuff, I went out and I raked it all up with a little bit of grass that came with it and dumped it in a bag and off it went.
There you go.
That was that.
That's how it should be, right?
That's right.
Nancy just told us it's all going to the same place.
That's right. It is. There's no doubt about that.
All right, Dallas. Thanks for the call today.
No problem.
Okay, good to hear from you. If it's good enough for Dallas and Nancy, it's good enough for me. Rosie's little presents from the winter will all get raked up again whenever I decide to rake the backyard. Andre is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Andre.
Good afternoon, Mike. Happy Tuesday.
That's it?
Yeah. I was thinking of Terry, Monday, Tuesday, happy days, because he doesn't like discos.
No, he likes disco.
Yeah, but isn't he more of a rock and roll?
But he said he likes disco. You can't claim to be a rock and roll guy and then like disco. That's not allowed, is it?
That's why I was wondering, because you when you're that old like us, you have to love every decade of the music, right?
Andre, I'm surprised you started with Happy Tuesday. You know it's a game day, don't you?
Yes, I was going to finish by that.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna stop interrupting. It's all your turn now.
No, it's okay, Mike. I'm very happy for the people that called in about the dog waste because it seems so popular. But yes, I do put it in my green bin. For one. For two, I was very confused about this new way of doing garbage, and I adapt, and they adapt. They're on time, and it's fantastic. And I asked him the question. I was like, what do I do with my old green bin that's smaller and not for this truck? And he says, you can return it to the shop for free, or you could use it for your waste. What is that called again? Yard waste. So I was very happy with that. Second thing is I'm not really for this sniper thing because I believe that's intimidation, Mike. I do believe more into like a R-15 rubber bullets in case there's a crowd that goes something, because those rubber bullet slug, they really hurt. So that's one thing. And then the last thing, Mike, is go Rangers. We got this. And I can't wait to listen to you tonight. And I was wondering, last thing, Mike, are we going to have a screen in the park so we can drink our wine or beer?
You're not going to need a screen. You can just do whatever you want. Doug Ford said so. You'll be allowed to enjoy alcohol in public like a grown-up and stuff. Just on Andre's point about his old green bin, which is the smaller one now, which you can't put out because the truck can't pick it up. Yes, I'm glad Andre brought that up. We've been encouraged to use it for different things around the home. I hadn't heard yard waste as being one of the options, but sure, because that is a different collection. Use it for a storage container, planter, whatever, or you can put it out on bulky waste garbage day, and they'll pick it up for you as garbage, as waste collection. Just some of the options for those old bins that are no longer useful. Tom is next on Talkback. Hello, Tom.
Hi, how are you?
Good,
it's about
thank you.
that St. Patrick. I think we should try to get these people to have a good time and help them on their way, because they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to those businesses there. And now the guy the sniper, he was ready to shoot them all. This is crazy.
Wait, he was not. Stop that.
Sure he is.
He's not.
Sure he is.
Stop it.
You got to think of these guys. Who's going to protect you from these guys? Like, the guy had the mask and everything.
Wait a minute. Who's going to protect you from the police?
Yeah.
What is the matter with you?
Come on, man.
You come on.
You don't put a sniper up there to shoot the kids.
No, he wasn't up there to shoot the kids. To say so is stupid.
What was he going to do if something started? He was going to shoot the kids.
No, he was not.
What? Hey, how do you know? Why would you put a sniper? This is stupid.
Oh, you know,
it's
Tom.
A celebration.
Yeah, it's stupid to think that he was going to shoot students, Tom.
No, it's stupid to put him there.
Okay, that's fine. We will disagree on that point. That's ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure those folks that went to the Lapu Lapu Festival in Vancouver a couple of years ago were just, expecting a grand old time in a public celebration, right? This is the world that we live in today. I'm all for having some overhead coverage. Thank you very much. Although I'm not all for what that tells me about the state of the world today. But just stop it when they're going to shoot the students. What's the matter with you? Don't bring that happy crappy into my Tuesday afternoon. I'm having a good day today. Grant, you're on Talkback. Grant is not there. Well, what? Grant?
I'm back, yeah.
Where, Grant, what are you doing? Holy Hannah.
Holy
Why don't you at least put on some chamber music while I'm on hold with you, Grant?
I don't know what that means.
All right, what do you want to talk about?
That hit on our player, should that player not be suspended?
What hit on what player in what game?
The Guelph game where that guy punched our fellow right in the temple. You could clearly see that he was not that stable.
Yeah, well, Grant, unfortunately, this is, you know what, I love me some physicality and some fisticuffs in the game of hockey. I didn't love what I saw on Sunday. Caden Schneider did get a little bit wobbled, but no, you're not going to. The two players willingly engaged in the fight. There's nothing more that comes of that. It was a really unfortunate outcome for Caden.
I think they should do something about it, because you're saying that then it's okay for someone to be completely knocked out and killed.
Well, they allow fighting in the game. So if you don't want fighting in the game, you can say you don't want fighting in the game.
Yeah. And how much money did they raise for the what's that?
Oh, the 50-50 mega jackpot.
No, Kingsman.
Oh, the Kin TV auction. I haven't heard yet, but as soon as I hear, I'll tell you.
Did you buy anything?
I did. I told you yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, and what was it?
We won a little prize package for Block 3, the brewery in St. Jacobs.
Oh, okay.
I'm not inviting you though. Don't ask. You don't get to come with us.
Well, that's not very nice.
I know. I'm sorry, but I have to be honest with you. I don't want to mislead you.
Okay.
Okay.
And I won some Apple. It was advertised as Atwood Heritage Basket. So, their pepperonis. My goodness, I love them like a 40-year-old woman. But yeah.
Okay. Wait. Did I just was that what Grant, he loves his Atwood pepperoni like a 40-year-old woman. I shouldn't have even repeated that. My apologies to anyone who just happened to be listening. Grant, behave yourself. I'm going to go to the brewery instead. Pat is next on Talkback. Hello, Pat.
Hey, how you doing there, Mike?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. One clarification. I think the stuff that goes in the yard waste bag goes for mulching, not for composting. You put the brown stuff from the dogs in a separate bag. Just you keep it. You don't have to worry so much now because the fellow unloading it isn't going to be coming in contact with it. But that should go to compost.
But Pat, I've seen these things get dropped off, like at the leaf collection sites and all that stuff, and there's a big area for them out at the yard.
But that's for compost, though, not for that's for mulching, not for compost. There's different. You're just taking the stuff off of your lawn to be spread onto somebody else's property.
Well, isn't that the point, though?
No. Compost is fertilizer.
That's what goes in the brown bag.
No, that's for mulching and stuff. That's what you put on over dirt to cover it.
Why does it have to be so confusing?
Well, it's not if you just read the rules.
Oh, don't do this to me. Okay.
There's the one more thing I wanted to bring up.
Yes, sir.
We were one of hundreds of people who are not supposed to be going to the United States at all. We lined up with dozens of other Ontario plates on Sunday morning to head down to Buffalo. Crossing at the Peace Bridge, the border agent was very friendly and just happy to let us go. We also noticed that Buffalo is a very Irish place at times, even though it's got more of a Polish heritage. We went to a restaurant in the Old First Ward, it's called. The restaurant's called Adolph's, and it's a very Irish place. Everybody in there, even though it wasn't St. Patrick's Day, was dressed. A lot of them were Irish, of Irish descent. We had probably what's described as the fourth best wings in all of the United States. These things are amazing. And then we went to book a room at a downtown hotel that we won a pass for. We go down to the Buffalo Bison's games one weekend every summer, every month through the summer. And while we were there, I guess the girl at the desk said, "You're lucky I came now because there was just a huge St. Patrick's Day parade that just went by there." So they take it very seriously, and it's a great time. And we love going down there.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, you got to, if you're in Buffalo, man, go to Adolph's.
We will.
It's absolutely wonderful.
Fourth best wings in America. I gotcha.
That's what they're described as.
All right, Pat. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, no problem. Bye.
Good to hear from you. Tell me to read the rules. I'll read no stinking rules. I make my own up. That's funny, though, that Pat talks about going down to Buffalo because my beloved is also on the... I don't think we need to go to the States anytime soon. Except Buffalo. Every now and again. And just the other night it came up again. We should go to Buffalo. I'm like, Buffalo's in the United States, right? We're going to go to Buffalo. We enjoy our Buffalo. So Adolph's for the fourth best wings in America. Note made. And Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You people with all your rules on things. Thank you, Lori, for being one of you people. With the email to Mike at 570news.com. In the region of Waterloo, dog waste should be placed in the green bin using proper compostable or paper bags rather than in yard waste to comply with local waste management policies. Yeah, but you see, yard waste is a paper bag. Like, this is where I'm struggling here. Yep. Rules, schmools. Talkback. I'm supposed to answer phones. Gripper, you're next on Talkback. Hello.
Good morning, Mike, or good afternoon, I guess it is now.
Good afternoon.
For sure, it's not a good idea to be putting it in your leaves. And the biggest reason is in the fall, when people put their leaves on the road, everybody's going to be putting their dog poop in those leaves.
So what? So what? That's where it is anyway. If you're raking it up off the lawn, it's already in the leaves, Gripper.
So if you haven't raked up your leaves on your front lawn, then some of you throw the dog poop on your front lawn.
They do, whatever. So what?
Right?
So what?
Oh, come on.
Gripper. So what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We disagree.
Yeah.
I like it. Gripper and I sound like my father or my future self arguing with my future self. Paul, Farwell's Force member number 331. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mikey, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. I want to rave about those Kitchener Rangers.
Do it up, buddy. Let's go.
86 points in 23, 100 last year, 98 and counting this year. Can you imagine this team with Luke Ellenis aboard it?
Oh, Paul, why do you got to put a dagger in my heart like that? That hurts. I couldn't imagine, actually.
Like, he was the sole guy last year that got us through the Windsor, right?
Darn right he was.
We had Parsons and that and everything else, but you imagine that guy on this team this year.
That is such a good point.
I mean, we would go all the way.
Well, listen, we're still going to try to get places here.
Oh, yeah, I've been watching because I'd like to see the Rangers play Everett. Silvertips.
Oh.
I'd like to see that.
All right. Well, you might get your wish.
Okay, my friend.
Thanks,
Go Rangers.
Thanks, Paul. Great to hear from you today. Oh, Luke Ellenis. I see him around the rink all the time. Love that kid. And injured and unlikely to play anytime soon. But anyway, Robbie English, you're going to get the last word. You're here on my daytime show.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm used to hearing from you late on Friday night, my friend. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, you'll hear from me late on Tuesday night tonight when we get the 100 in the bag.
Good.
No, very quick. I just went to the dealership, get some work done, and I actually got to see it on the TV, which always makes a change. And yeah, tonight, go Rangers. We're going to do it. 100. The championship is ours, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, Robbie, I appreciate it. I love the enthusiasm still 6 hours before puck drop. I love it. It's a big game tonight. As soon as I woke up this morning, I'm like, wait a minute. There's something in the air today. And what's in the air is the possibility of wrapping up first place in the Western Conference. If the Rangers get a point tonight, they will finish in first place in the Western Conference, and they will have home ice advantage for as long as they are in the playoffs. It's the Flint Firebirds and the Kitchener Rangers, and your Harris Law pregame show gets underway at 6:30 right here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. They don't get much bigger than this for regular season games. It's going to be a dandy tonight at that Grand Old Dame on East Avenue. Cannot wait. If you're there, look forward to seeing you. If you can't be there, like I said, we've got you covered right here, starting with pregame coverage at 6:30, right through Rangers talk, which won't end until 11. And then I'll come back tomorrow morning, and at 9, we will resume our conversations. We'll pick up right where we left off today, okay? As always, you're invited back to those conversations tomorrow morning at 9. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.